Good evening. It is June 1st, 2026. This is the Guilford Board of Education. This is a special meeting tonight to allow the Board of Ed to deliberate and vote on the application of reductions taken by the Board of Finance at their meeting last Tuesday as a result of the failed referendum for the second time. So tonight we are going to be doing exactly that. We are going to start the agenda with a public comment. I am going to take please a minute or two just for a couple of notes. So first is that you see 8 of us here. Our 9th colleague, Arnold Scretta, is joining us. He is not able to be here in person, but we do have him zooming in. So we do have the entire 9-member board who will be part of this meeting tonight. I want to take a moment just to talk about a couple of things. One of which is important dates. So on Tuesday, June 9th, the town will hold the town budget meeting. As they do every time before a referendum. That town meeting, I assume, is going to be held as it has been here in Guilford High School. I'm looking at Dr. Freeman because I realized I didn't check that ahead of time.
Town meeting,
The
we
town
anticipate
meeting.
it will be here, yes.
Yes, okay. It is at that meeting that the budgets at that point that get forwarded to the town for referendum, although there is the chance if a number of people show up and there are a number of people in attendance that people opposed to the budget could try to have a vote to have that happen. So it isn't an unimportant meeting. And then the referendum will be Tuesday, July 16th. Polls open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. June 16th. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
We're off to a good start. June 16th. I mentioned this last time. I know there were some folks, we were emailed by someone who noted in an earlier version of this meeting a couple of weeks ago that there were some folks who were unhappy perhaps with some decisions that had been made by either the Board of Ed or the administration and had decided to abstain in the past from the town referendum. I'm going to highly ask that people not choose that as a way to try to communicate to us because unfortunately what it means is you're letting other people decide how this budget gets decided. I have also been asked to mention, someone reached out to me and said they were seeing a little bit on social media about people really concerned about how much the Board of Finance cut the Board of Ed budget this last time and hoping or considering whether a vote no would be a way to let the Board of Finance know that. I've been on the board for 14 years. The Board of Finance has never increased the budget after a referendum goes down. And I have zero expectation that they would do that this time. They have sat through several meetings where many of people in town have noted that they were concerned about the increase in the budget and they wanted money taken out of the budget before it went out again. So a no vote is going to be interpreted as we have to cut more. So if that is your inclination, please reconsider. I was going to turn it over to my colleague, Kristen Pack, who also my vice chair, who wanted to say a few words before we get started.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the public that we are all Guilford residents, all of us who sit on this board, and more than half of us have multiple kids in the district right now through all different levels, from elementary up through the high school. So these decisions matter to us as individuals, as families, as residents, and as Board of Education members. So we don't take any of this conversation lightly. None of it is kind of flippantly decided. It really matters directly to us. And we also are taxpayers in this town, so we appreciate the want of keeping taxes low. And we all also appreciate the great school system, and we know that great schools translates to higher property value. So we've all seen and heard a lot of criticism of different areas that we have cut, haven't cut. And I just would love everyone to understand kind of where we all come from. Like, we are all sitting in the same room, in the same position as everyone else in this town, concerned about how we create the best education system at the best value for all of us who love Guilford. That's it. I just wanted to start with a little bit of that preamble, and we'll see how we do tonight. Wonderful.
So we are going to start with public comment. As per the agenda, we identified kind of a total 45-minute limit. Really, that's so that we can get to start discussing things and not do it when we start getting tired and cranky, which is in everybody's best interest. We are going to ask for a 3-minute limit if you're interested in coming up and speaking. If you can say what you want to say in fewer than 3 minutes, there's more opportunity for people behind you. I will note, if we last 30 minutes, if we get to that point and there's still people who are talking, I am going to encourage, and I'll even encourage it beforehand, if you've heard someone who's really eloquently stated your position and what you want to do is come up and give your name and give your address and say, I really endorse what so-and-so said, and sit down, we will not think that you were unprepared. We will think that you are being conscious of time. So again, encourage that. But this is here, this public comment is here so that we can hear from you. So as you come, anyone who wants to speak, we ask you to come up to the podium. Please state your name and address. And again, keep it at the outer limit within 3 minutes. We are going to time it. It's the fair way to do it. I don't see anyone here of student status in Guilford Public Schools, but we do have students who often come for public comment. We do not expect them to give their address, only their name.
Dr. Bellis Tracy, there is a yellow pad at the podium for name and address. It is helpful with the minutes.
Terrific. And for flow, feel free to come up, state your name and address, speak, and then fill out the piece of paper afterwards while the next person comes up. All right, please, public forum, we welcome your comments. Who would like to speak? No need to raise hands. You can just walk up to the podium.
I'll go first.
Wonderful.
Here.
Thank you.
3 minutes.
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Freeman. My name is Banu Pan. I live at 41 Ironwood Road. I'm the parent of an 8th grade cellist at Adams and 11th grade violinist at the high school. I also serve as secretary of the GHS Music Boosters and co-president of PROS, Parents Representing Orchestra Students. I'm here tonight not just as a parent, but as a member of the community that has watched these programs make a genuine and lasting difference in students' lives. I want to begin by recognizing the difficult financial circumstances facing the district and by expressing genuine gratitude for the board that the support this board has shown our music program over the years. I come here tonight not to make your work harder, but to share what I believe is at stake and to ask that the board maintain current staffing levels at Adams Middle School. A reduction of 0.5 FTE may appear modest as a budget line item, but I want to be clear about what that number represents in practice. It is not an abstraction. It is a person, and in a program of this size, it is a person whose presence, relationships, and institutional knowledge shape what students experience every day. And when you understand what music programs actually provide, the stakes become even clearer. Research consistently shows that sustained music participation improves executive function, working memory, and the cognitive skills that transfer directly to math, reading, and problem solving. Because learning an instrument requires a child to read notation, coordinate fine motor skills, track time, and listen, all simultaneously and over years of sustained effort. Ensemble programs then take that individual discipline and turn it into something collective, teaching persistence, humility, and resilience, not as values we talk about, but as capacity students build through daily practice and performance. And for many students, it is something even more than that. Music programs offer a sense of belonging that students cannot always find elsewhere. For students who struggle to connect in traditional academic settings, the ensemble becomes their community, their anchor, the place where they're known and where they matter. The skills they develop there, the ability to collaborate, to persist through difficulty, to listen as carefully as they perform, are precisely the skills that employers, colleges, and communities say they're looking for in young people, and that no standardized test can measure. What I most want the board to understand is that programs like this are not built quickly. They're built over years of consistent staffing, sustained relationships, and the kind of institutional continuity that allows a culture to take root. Adams has worked hard to rebuild after the instability that followed COVID and earlier staffing cuts, and that recovery, while real, remains fragile. When staffing is reduced, classes grow larger, instruction thins, and program culture quietly erodes. Guilford Public Schools has been named the best community for music education by NAM Foundation for 2 consecutive years. That distinction reflects something real about what this district has built, and it is worth protecting. I respectfully ask that you protect it by maintaining current staffing levels at Adams. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to address the board tonight?
Hello, members of the board, and hello, everyone. On my way here, I was thinking about, I have to start with my name.
Yes.
Please, name and address, please.
Okay, Jenny Shea. I live at 110 North Madison Road. I am a 3rd grade teacher at Guilford Lakes, and I'm also the mother of 2 children who have gone through Guilford Lakes Elementary School. On my way here tonight, I was thinking about what would I say to my kids, what would I say to my students as a teacher and as a parent if something didn't go the way we wanted the first time or the second time, right? And I thought, well, we teach our kids about having a positive mindset. And so I think about tonight as a great opportunity for us to really think hard about what would be in our kids' best interest. I wanted to share with you my experience with our wonderful instructional coaches at Guilford Lakes, Christian Baltimore and Paul Salem. And in sharing my experience in my classroom, I presume it is similar in all of the classrooms at our school and across the district. This striving for high quality instruction, it comes so much from what they teach us as educators and what they inspire us to do on a daily basis. Calling them a coach or a consultant is not right, in my opinion, because they are experienced educators who are active in the classrooms all of the time. They're in my classroom with the kids, actively teaching them once a week. Not just that, they're meeting with me another time in the week. They're meeting with the whole grade an additional time in the week. They're leading professional learning communities with the entire school. They are inspiring us by modeling what we could be doing in our classrooms. I love that they never say you should be doing this because they trust us as educators, and I appreciate that. Not just that they really know our children so well. They're just not just names. It's not just data that comes through that they're monitoring and that the teachers are monitoring. They know the students by name. They know their strengths. They know where each student needs improvement. Very specifically, they could tell you what spelling patterns a kid would need more work on. And, within that same day, I will get a pile of resources to help me strengthen those skills. I can give you many specific examples, but our coaches are wonderful. Not just that the impact on student learning is visible. I know my kids, and I speak for our school, we've seen incredible gains, incredible progress in literacy and in math. And to say that's just what the teachers are doing, we have to look at our instructional coaches and everything, all the tools that they have given us to be able to help make that progress. And our kids love them. Love them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address the board tonight? Anybody?
Good evening. My name is Michael Donuzzo, 41 Windler Lane, here in Guilford, Connecticut. I thought it'd be a good time for me to actually follow this. everyone's got a lot of opinions and beliefs regarding our educational coaches, and to be respectful, I'm not gonna say coaches, they're educational coaches. However, this budget has been voted down twice. This is not a necessity, this is a luxury. It's a luxury to have coaches, educational coaches. But a lot of the residents here in this town are against it. Not because they can't be beneficial or helpful for our children here and their educational backgrounds that they're going to bring to this school and help teachers. Again, it's a luxury. It's not a necessity. We have certified teachers that went through years of schooling that can give our children the education they need. You are sitting in the face of a potential third no vote. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I feel like this public hearing is a little disingenuous. I'm sitting here, we're all sitting here pleading, trying to give you guys opinions of what we think should be cut. Yeah, it's predetermined. We're not going to sway anything tonight. These conversations, you talk about communication. These communications should have been done weeks ago. Probably right after the first vote, and after the second time it was voted down. Yeah, that didn't happen. And now you call a meeting for the public to speak, and it's predetermined. Everything is done. Dr. Freeman, he has his mind set up. This is not going to change tonight. And I wish it would. I wish our opinions and our beliefs on certain topics would change the decisions that you might make. But again, I'm here not to advocate for people to lose their jobs. I don't want that to happen, but it's inevitably going to happen. We're going to cut from somewhere, and it should not be from our teachers or our special educational departments. It should be coming from where it's not a necessity. Educational coaches are a luxury. It's a benefit to have. But if the residents of this town are against it, you need to listen. We have great teachers here that can provide our students with the education they need. And the fact that we're even looking about cutting special education or our IT department, what are we going to do if we cut IT? This whole world is going towards digital technology. AI is coming fast. It's not going backwards. We're not going back to paper. So if we're even considering cutting IT, a $35,000 a year job for an IT associate, that's not going to make a dent in the budget. What would make a dent in the budget is the luxury educational coaches making $100,000+ a year that we don't need at this time. If the budget corrects itself, yeah, maybe we can bring them back. Again, I'm not advocating for people to lose their jobs. I'm a realist. I'm just looking at the facts of the case. And our scores haven't even risen since they've been on board. There's no factual evidence that this is helping us. It just looks good. It's a dog and pony show. Look at what we have.
Thank you very much.
Again, not advocating for people to lose their job, but we need to look at what's a necessity and a luxury.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Renee Fagan, 288 Whitebirch Drive. I'm here tonight to raise concerns about transparency in the Board of Education's budget process. In advance of this meeting, I submitted a detailed set of questions regarding the proposed fiscal year 26 to 27 budget. My goal was simple: to be able to understand the proposal and participate in a thoughtful, informed way. My questions focused on several core areas, including requesting an org chart, staffing and salary assumptions, explanations behind significant budget changes, both increases and decreases, explanations of contracted services and operations, and clarity on facilities and utility costs. Despite these questions that I submitted yesterday, the only response I received today was that they did not have time to address my questions. Not one. What I was provided with instead was a link to a list of historical documents. It has been suggested that the Board of Education budget has been politically driven. I ask, when did fiscal responsibility, accountability, and transparency become political? As Democrats or Republicans, I would expect that all Guilford constituents question how our taxpayer money is being allocated, how the public makes informed decisions without transparency. It is essential to accountability and trust. Last week, I submitted a FOIA request asking for a list of the central office salaries. Within that document, it was explained that the superintendent's salary receives $272,382.50 as the fiscal year 24 to 25 base salary. However, contractual obligations, if you read the employment agreement, show that in addition to that base salary, there's a leadership stipend in the amount of $8,500, a car allowance in the amount of $8,000, plus transportation reimbursement up to $200 a month, and a choice to forego up to 12 vacation days in lieu of paid salary. Most notable is the commitment to reimburse the superintendent position for payments made to the TRB system equal to $14,500. Note that TRB is left as an acronym in the employment agreement. Looking it up, it's the Teacher Retirement Board. All right, this brings that salary for that position up to $343,535 for that fiscal year. Where are these additional monies coming from? Where is the transparency? It's also worth noting that these TRB payments are not paid by all Board of Educations throughout the state of Connecticut. Why is our employment agreement with this superintendent an outlier? Furthermore, it's important to understand that the agreement between the Guilford Board of Education and the Guilford Council of Educational Administrators, which was already signed on October 14th of 2025 by Dr. Balistraci, and I'm not going to stop, I'm going to finish my
No,
statement.
excuse me, you are gonna stop,
Okay,
please,
does somebody
because,
want to give me their 3
no,
minutes?
excuse me, ma'am,
He's
ma'am,
going to give me my 3 minutes.
excuse me.
No.
ma'am,
Absolutely not.
Excuse me,
No.
ma'am,
Not how it works.
you are welcome to make your comments within the 3
Okay,
minutes.
then I'll
Now
go and I'll come
ask
back
you to-
again.
To step back, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? No, excuse me, there are people, you
Okay.
have had your 3 minutes, it is now other people's
Okay,
turn.
then I'll get my 3 minutes at the tail end because I'm not done.
Good evening. My name is Chris Jones. I live at 55 Tulip Tree Drive. I'm a parent. I have a son in Calvin Lee Elementary School. I have a couple things I'll say very quickly. I'm thinking I'm repeating what some people have said. With regard to educational and coaches, I was at the Board of Finance meeting last week. I think Dr. Balistraci, you made a great explanation and defense of why they're necessary and how they are the standard of care in school districts across the nation. This is not a luxury. This is the standard of care for education these days, and we need to provide what our students need. I want you to hear from the public that we do support you. We do support this situation. I know you've been given a number from the Board of Finance. I know it's a difficult task ahead of you. I don't envy you what you have to do. I know there's mandatory spending, there's discretionary spending like there is in any budget. As a parent, I will echo what has been said here so far, which is the humans, the people, the staff that make up our district are so important. They have lives, they have bills to pay, they have mortgages, and many of them are our neighbors. So I know you don't have freedom to make all the decisions you need to make with the number you've been given. But I would advocate, hopefully, that you can, to the extent possible, protect the people. If there's a facilities upgrade that needs to be made, perhaps that can be made next year. But I want you to hear from the public that we support the people. We want to protect our teachers. We love the school district. We love this community. We think the quality of the schools make this community what it is. And I don't envy what you're doing. I know your parents. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. But I want you to know that the community supports you. We know how difficult this is. And to the extent at all possible, please protect the staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, come on up.
Hi, good evening. I'm Colleen Farrell. I live at 5 Powder Hill Drive. I'm the mom of a kindergartner at Calvin Lee and also a member of Guilford Families for Schools. I know this board has been directed to cut over $500,000 and that you will make those decisions tonight. I'm not here to ask you not to cut. I understand, you know, we're in this position. I'm here to ask you to protect the positions that have the most direct impact on the most vulnerable students. Specifically, I'm asking you to protect interventionists and paraprofessionals. These are the staff members working directly with our students whose needs cannot wait. You've already cut the elementary special education coordinator. The people who remain on our staff are carrying that load now. Cutting the staff who support our most vulnerable students would be the deepest harm this budget process has caused. I'd also ask you to think carefully before cutting world language positions. In the past few years, we've already cut world language instruction in Guilford at the elementary level. Compressing Spanish from 2 years to 1 at the middle school continues that trend of narrowing our students' educational experience at exactly the age where language acquisition is most effective. It does direct harm to our students' learning. Especially in this time, the skills that will matter most, empathy, communication, collaboration, and creativity, are built through human relationships. We value finding and retaining excellent teachers and also ensuring that they have class sizes small enough that they can actually reach every kid. My husband and I work full-time, my husband works full-time. We also work remotely, and we could have lived anywhere in the country, and literally we have Seattle, Minnesota, Salem, Massachusetts. We decided to move here to Guilford because of the school system. I also read the school newsletter and the PTO newsletter every week. I also have 2 kids that are under 6 years old. It's currently their bedtime, and my husband's putting them to bed during their bedtime routine. I had no idea that this entire situation was happening. It's not apathy, it's not a no vote, it's a communication gap that the Board of Education is not communicating sufficiently to your primary audience, which is busy working parents. I believe that's why the last referendum failed. The Board of Education does need to do a better job at communicating what is at stake, and I'm happy to help brainstorm solutions to that problem. I'm sure many of us in this room are. I know this board doesn't want to make these cuts, but if cuts are made, please protect the people and programs closest to students. We need this board to preserve as much as possible for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? Who hasn't spoken yet?
Good evening. Thank you all for the service that you do for our community. My name is Ansley Roach. I live at 18 Orcutt Drive. I have a kindergartner at Calvin Lee and a younger one who will hopefully be following in her footsteps with the wonderful teacher that she currently has, that my kindergartner has. I'm just going to echo some of the things that the citizens here have already said, and add to that. People are not where we should be making cuts. You were given the task of cutting $525,000, my understanding from the Board of Finance meeting last week. In looking through the budget, it appears that there is a Chromebook budget for $440,000 for kindergartners, 5th graders, and 9th graders. I'm sure that has to do with a lot of different schools, but my kindergartner has the Chromebook. So she doesn't need another one. And in fact, I would say she doesn't need this one. And I would say, consider reallocating the tech that we already have and giving it to the students who you think need it. Although I would challenge the ones that you think need it. I don't think 3rd graders need Chromebooks. I think 3rd graders need teachers communicating to them. I think they need human beings teaching them. My daughter goes to the library and sometimes she watches a screen. A screen reads her a book. That saddens me a little bit. There's a librarian who is paid to do library science with my child and her classmates. And a computer is reading to her. I think that's not where our money should be going. We should be cutting. Yes, AI is coming. I think we should resist it to some extent. And I understand the argument that we live in a digital world and it will be increasingly digital. And you can argue whether that's a good or a bad thing, but let's just say it's not good for children's brains. It's actually not even good for our brains. Try putting down your phone. So I understand that we need to teach them and prepare them for this world, but their brains are very premature or immature. They're developing, and it's not the time to give them an addictive piece of equipment. So we don't expose kids to drugs, gambling, that sort of thing, because they don't have the cognitive skills to manage it. And so I say, let's push back when we expose children to screens in the classroom, reallocate what we already have. There's tons of tech in these classrooms. reallocate it to the older kids. Please take it out of the kindergarten classes and arguably the elementary schools. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board? No, excuse me, ma'am, you have had your 3 minutes.
I do, but I do wanna.
No,
share
I'm
that you
sorry,
did
there's
open-
someone coming
Please
up.
go right ahead. Sorry,
You've had your 3
I know,
minutes.
but you said you were open to communicating with us.
We just
Yeah.
let everybody else speak first.
What's up? Hi, how are you?
Hi, good evening. My name is Emily Fournier. I am a parent of 2 children at Guilford Lake School. I live on Office Road North. And I'm also the literacy coach at Melissa Jones School. I'm speaking tonight in both capacities because I recognize that questions have been raised about the value of instructional coaches in Guilford Public Schools. And to say those questions don't sting would absolutely be a lie. The coaching team works very hard every day toward one goal. And that goal is ensuring that all students have access to high quality, equitable instruction, regardless of what school they're in, what classroom they're in, their race, gender, or learning designation. Much of our work is invisible to people outside of our school building. Coaches partner with district leaders, principals, and teachers to bring research-based professional learning into classrooms. We lead professional learning at the building level and sometimes the district level. We facilitate teacher teams called PLCs. We analyze student work and data to determine if our intention had the intended effect. We support teachers through coaching cycles. We support our MTSS system by working to strengthen our tier 1 instruction. And we support teachers in strengthening their small group protocols if students don't respond to our tier 1 instruction. At its core, coaching is about equity. Equity meaning ensuring that every child, like I said before, regardless of their school they attend, their teacher they are placed with, has access to rigorous learning experiences and opportunities for deep thinking that are consistent across our entire system. Coaching is not about fixing teachers. We know that the teachers in Guilford are absolutely wonderful. They truly move mountains for students. And it is our charge to make sure that in all classrooms, students are accessing high quality instruction. As both a coach and a parent, I have seen the impact of coaching. My daughter has dyslexia. She receives special education services in both ELA and math. I listen to her teacher speak in PPT meetings, and I hear the same language that we use at Melissa Jones in the PPT meetings, where she talks about the scaffolds that she uses, the ways that she provides my daughter with access to the tier 1 curriculum so that she feels true academic belonging. She comes home and she says, Mrs. Willett makes math fun. And that is because she works with coaches. I hear the language. I have a unique perspective because I know what to listen for. So when I hear it, I see the impact of the coaches directly. My son, he struggles as a reader. He has for years. He got a 3 on SBAC because his teacher worked with a coach to get more knowledge about phonics instruction skills that she then used, and he was able to then get a 3 on SBAC. This year, he chooses to read books all the time, which is a dream come true. He walks around the house reading. His teacher worked with coaches, and that is why he is reading the way he is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to?
There is, and you're not allowed to continue.
Everyone has been told 3 minutes. It was on the.
You made that decision, it's not us.
I did make that decision.
Yes, you
correct.
did.
Yes.
You also made the decision to sign.
Is there anyone else that would like to
binding
speak?
this town for 3 years to giving the administrative staff an increase of
Excuse me,
7%
ma'am.
year over year.
I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the meeting if you
I
can't
would be
respect.
more
the
than happy to
rules.
make that statement.
Is there anyone else who would like to
Renee Fagan. Thank you.
address the board?
And I'll also say on my way out, that is a great.
Is there anyone else who
personal
would like to
impact,
address
because
the
2 members of that board have been
Okay.
very, very dismissive to me personally because I take a stand. You know who you are.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight on any budget topic? Going once? Going twice? All right. I really want to thank everyone who did come tonight and speak tonight. I know for some, it's kind of nervous making to get up and speak at the podium, and we do appreciate the input. I didn't count. I would make an educated guess that we probably got about 20 emails today. I was responding, reading them, word for word and responding to them up till about 6 o'clock when I thought, if I was gonna get here on time, I needed to stop. So please know, we did read those. It's so important to us, to have public input. We do in the whole budget cycle, in October, we start with, a public forum on the budget before we have a budget, because we want the community to come to us and tell us what they'd like to see. And we've had all kinds of different comments from programming people like to see, or a new sports team, or could we have more of XYZ? We hold 2 public comments at the end of January, on the Monday and Tuesday, the last week of January. Once Dr. Freeman has presented the budget to us, so now you and we have like lots and lots of numbers in front of us. So that people can come and say, and advocate for specific line items or for additional things, or comment on the things we're considering. We'll take email any and all times and try to answer all of them. And then through this process, try to be as responsive as possible. If any of you have ideas for ways that we can be more engaging, we can communicate better about when those things happen. I will admit I've been doing this for 14 years, so I can, as you can tell you exactly when those public meetings are at the top of my head. But understand that's, that's not what everyone's experience is. So after this meeting and after this process, please feel free to reach out if you have some good ideas for us to make sure we're getting out to people in a way that gets more attention. All right.
Some comments on the comments.
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Just a couple thoughts based on some comments that we heard tonight. And to kind of echo what Dr. Balistraci just said, I know one of you mentioned that you're a busy working parent and aren't totally able to find out all of the meetings. You can't come to a lot of them. I would love to know, I think we would all love to know the best way to communicate that. Like we really try to publish all of our meetings, keep everything public, and publish when they're coming. And if there's another way that you think would be a better communication avenue, we'd love to hear it, because we need some new ideas, apparently. And then I also wanted to just remind the public, our last budget cut, we cut an admin position in special education at the elementary schools that is not an existing position. That was a position that the administration was asking for as a brand new position this year. So it wasn't a reduction. It was just, we decided that this wasn't the year that we could really afford that new administration position. So I didn't want there to be any confusion about what that role was. And then the last thing, we had a couple of folks talk about whether or not what we're cutting tonight is predetermined. And I don't feel that way at all. Like I'm really not sure what half of this group is going to say. So I'm interested to hear where we wind up tonight. None of it is going to be fun. I don't think any of us wants to have anything on this budget cut. But I would just like to personally reassure all of you, like this is not predetermined. Like we do not come in here with a set list of something that we want cut that's directed by Dr. Freeman. Like, I don't know. Dr. Freeman will make some recommendations. We will deliberate against those recommendations. And one of a huge shortfall that we had our last meeting when we were in the same position, Dr. Freeman, in fact, made recommendations of areas to cut, and we cut different things than what he recommended. Like the position I was just talking about, that special ed position, that was a new administrative position. Dr. Freeman really advocated hard for that. And we as a board said, we just don't think we can afford that this year. So in fact, I do think this board is very open to public opinion. We're open to each other's opinions. Dr. Freeman's opinion influences that, but does not drive exactly what we choose to eliminate from the budget. That's it.
Well said.
Thank you. So what, I am gonna turn this over to Dr. Freeman for a few minutes. One of the things we do, because Dr. Freeman is our superintendent and is running the schools, the person we hired to do so. We ask him when we're in these positions, he and the administration, to walk through some of their recommendations for where these cuts come from. As Ms. Peck just noted, we take that very seriously. We sometimes make different decisions, right? We have a lot that we're all trying to consider. But because of how closely Dr. Freeman, Dr. Goss, Mr. Hamel, Ms. Trudeau are to the budget, the system, the workings, it's really important to get their recommendations. So I am going to turn it over to you, Dr. Freeman, because I know you have thoughts on this $525,000 cut.
I appreciate that, Dr. Bellis Tracy. Thank you. I do have a document to share with all of you that lists a large number of areas that I believe need to be discussed tonight, and does once again cluster a package of those areas into my recommended $525,000. I continue to appreciate how I have the opportunity to partner with this board. I get to make recommendations. I get to explain those recommendations. I get to justify the items that I have not included into that recommendation. And then this board consistently makes thoughtful and balanced decisions. I appreciate that. I will share that with you in a minute. The last time we had this meeting, the board gave me time to walk through the bundle, the recommended items with my rationale, as well as speaking about the other items. And I'd appreciate the opportunity to do that again tonight.
Makes sense.
Before that, I would like to make a few introductory comments. I'm probably going to repeat this first one with every single bullet point as the night goes on, but I want to make clear every item on the list that I give to you tonight, every item that I suggest we need to discuss tonight, was in the budget that I originally drafted and that this board originally approved. Everything that I will raise tonight, I raise reluctantly, and I know that this board will wrestle with all of those items reluctantly. The initial budget that I presented to this community came forward recognizing the difficult financial situation with a reduction of 6 teaching positions. By the time we leave here tonight, that conservative budget will have been reduced by approximately $2 million. This is no longer the budget that I and you, this board, approved and brought forward. It is a compromise budget where we are doing the best that we can. So I essentially want to point out that I agreed with the vast majority of commenters tonight. I don't want to be raising the items and the positions that I will be raising tonight. I just want to start there. And I know that this board would prefer not to be having to make these decisions. I also want to respond to a couple comments that have been made recently. At the last Board of Finance meeting, there was a resident who stated that we should not be talking about the cuts that we are making to this budget, that in fact, we are receiving an increase this year and we're simply reducing the amount of that increase in these meetings. While that is true on the dollar side of the ledger, while that is true when we look at the overall budget, even after these $2 million in reductions, this budget will still be larger next year than it is this year in a dollar measure. It is, however, going to be leaner, smaller, reduced in people positions that we heard discussed tonight. This budget is going to have somewhere between 10 and 13 fewer teaching positions in the budget. And in that number, I'm including coaching positions. It's going to have fewer custodial positions, para positions, clerical positions. All of those positions will be reduced in this budget. Those are reductions. The budget increase needs to absorb costs increase. Somebody mentioned the non-discretionary cost increases that we are experiencing. The cost increase will absorb the increased medical costs, the increased transportation costs, fuel costs, and general inflation that this budget is experiencing. And we can't refuse to pay those bills. So while we absorb those non-discretionary costs, we are making real reductions reluctantly here tonight. I also want to talk about, to some degree, the approach that I have always brought to reductions and that we have always worked with collaboratively as a leadership team. When making reductions to the school budget, I have always adopted a distributive strategy that rather than cutting one whole program, rather than ending a whole thing that we do, we have tried to distribute those costs equitably across the entire organization. That is what we have followed in the first two rounds of cuts, and that is what the model that I will share with you continues to follow tonight. So as we go through, and I'll repeat some of these, but as we go through, when you look at the overall teaching cohort in the school system, we currently employ about 330 teachers today in Guilford Public Schools. And again, I am including coaches. Instructional coaches are teachers. When we absorb that 10 to 13 reduction in teaching staff, we will have reduced our overall teaching staff by approximately 3%. I am going to be recommending another instructional coach to be reduced tonight. This will be the third instructional coach. That's a cohort originally of only 14 individuals. We spent 16 years building up the coaching cohort from 3 when I arrived to 14 that we have in the district now. Those 3 will be a reduction of over 20% to the coaching cohort. That is significantly larger than the reduction to the overall teaching cohort. When we look at the clerical cohort, we've reduced it by 5% already in this budget. Custodial staffing has been reduced by 3% in this budget. We have not yet spoken about the interventionist cohort at all, but we will talk about those positions tonight. So again, as I have looked at the entire operation in Guilford Public Schools and attempted to be distributive in where those reductions fall, the coaching cohort has already received a reduction in orders of magnitude of any other portion of this organization. So as we talk about those positions tonight, I just wanted to begin with that sort of overview. So with all of that said, I have the working document that you have seen before. Twice already during this budget process. And again, if I may, I'd like to start with the first 5 bullets. 5 bullets together that represent my recommendation for the $525,000 reduction. There is, however, approximately $400,000 of other items that I believe we need to discuss. We've discussed previously, we should touch on tonight, and I would appreciate the opportunity to explain why they didn't move up into my recommended package, if that's okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so the first item comes with an additional artifact. We know, I think everybody knows, that the single most important driving factor in this year's budget bill has been our medical cost. Page 52 of the original budget book dealt with our medical increase this year. We absorbed a significant medical increase. In fact, over the last 2 years, we have given up 10 years worth of gains that we had made in our medical budgeting. This board knows that last year, during a difficult budget season, we agreed with the town to reduce our budgeted medical spend by $585,000. That reduction was counting on the medical surplus account to allow that reduction to be responsible. We will make it through this year, and that budget, that reduction, we have managed. It's like floating the budget on a credit card to some degree. We reduced the budget without the actual dollars coming in. When you look at the second column on that document, you notice that this year, in the budget that we have built, there has not been there hasn't been a similar reduction in the budget. So we went from artificially reducing by 585 this year, going all the way back to 0. And it has required us to close that gap to manage that cliff all in 1 year. Last year, we had multiple conversations with the town financial office. We had several conversations with our medical consultants. our medical insurance consultant. And what we would like to do this year is carry again a negative. So rather than going from 585, a negative 585 to zero, we would like to carry a $200,000 decrease to the dollars that we are budgeting currently for health insurance. That's not going from 585 up to 785. That's going from 585 down to 200,000. Next year, we would propose that we then bring this back to zero. It softens the cliff. It allows us to go from the full 585 to zero over 3 years rather than just absorbing it in 1 year. And I just thought that the simplest way to describe it was to show you page 52 with the adjustment that I am suggesting, a negative at the bottom of that column of $200,000. That would allow us to reduce the budget by $200,000. It continues to be moving in the right direction of getting back to zero and scratch for our medical spending. But it understands that this year is only worse than last year. So instead of getting back to zero, we cut that debt in half. At this moment, I'm going to invite Linda to correct everything that I got wrong in that explanation.
No, you got it right. The only thing that I want to add is when we originally decided on taking the $585,000, the plan was to phase down that
Absolutely.
payback or the use of that fund. So this would actually get us back to what our original plan was to phase in this to lessen that cliff.
It's important to note that medical insurance is done collaboratively with the town. So the reason we were discussing this with the town and with the insurance consultant was to make sure that it fit within everybody's plan. We weren't asking the town's permission. They don't make fiscal decisions for this board, but because insurance is a collaborative exercise, we want to make clear that the first selectman and the finance office downtown do agree with this. And Joe Spurgeon, your medical insurance consultant, also agrees that at this point in facing cuts of this magnitude, that this would be a responsible way to move forward and go a long way to reaching that 585 target that we need to reach tonight. The first 200,000 will come out of medical insurance if this board approves this decision.
Any questions on that now? We do have, we took that with the town, so it was a joint, I'm looking at Linda because she's also the
Town was an
director.
additional 160, so they
Right,
weren't
right.
part of the
I think
585.
we were, it was like a 750 total.
Right.
That we took out of the medical fund.
Correct.
And had talked about gradually putting it back. I based on our, and we're gonna have our regular board of ed meeting next Monday, and we'll be going over financials for May. But based on the projections for the end of the year, I think we're gonna find ourselves in a little different position than we have the past few years and have a little bit of a surplus.
Correct. So this board knows that in special education spending specifically, special education is annually the most volatile line that we have and the most difficult to predict. This year, for a number of reasons, special education has come in under budget, as well as a few other lines in this current fiscal year. So while we will be carrying that $200,000 credit on the town side, we expect that we will be able to return at the close of this year significantly more than that to the town at the end of this fiscal year. It is unusual for us to have more than 6 figures at the end of the school year. It's significantly unusual to have a return that could be $300,000 or $400,000. We will realize that this year. While it is the town's decision what to do with that money, and most often they put it directly into the rainy day account, we can send that money back with a recommendation that all or part of it go directly into the medical surplus fund specifically. That is not my or this board's decision. It is is it the Board of Finance or is it the Board of Selectmen to make that decision? But it's not this board, but we can certainly make that recommendation.
It would be the Board of Finance.
It'd be the Board of Finance.
Okay.
Thank thank you for noting that. I failed to note that.
No, I mean, I just, because, I'm trying very hard to be as responsible as possible with this. I know in past budget years, we have gotten the information from, our medical insurance consultant. And then found ourselves, after we've created a budget and brought it forward to the Board of Finance, hearing that actually we don't quite need that amount for medical benefits. And are able to reduce. And I think that probably causes some confusion for the public, right? Like not understanding if we're budgeting accurately, when in fact, because we, in Guilford are on the earlier end of preparing budgets, on voting on budgets. This year, that timing is working to our benefit because we try to get this third referendum in before June 30th. But this is really different. Nothing has changed about what we've been told we need to pay for medical benefits next year. But we are, because we were really trying to kind of support the taxpayer last year by jointly with the town taking some money out of the medical account, which had the money that we could do that responsibly. We now have an opportunity, and the plan, at least originally, was that it would all get paid back, but we have the opportunity to pay most of it back.
Correct.
And still get money into that medical fund.
Correct.
That's great.
As context, people need to remember, and we're self-insured. We
Yes.
don't pay a premium to a private insurance company, as many people do. It's not unusual that school systems do that, but we do that. And for the last 7 or 8 years, we always had a surplus. The experience of people getting ill and needing help was less than we had available. It just so happens in the last 2 years, the need for hospitalization and medical has gone up far beyond prediction. So the fact that we're able to talk about surpluses on one hand and deficits at the moment is a function of, quote, the marketplace. We are our own insurance company. And for those who have in previous meetings accused us of not going out on the market where it's always cheaper, that's the supposition. We've been saving 8 to 12% per year compared to using private insurance. So fiscally, the town and the Board of Education have been responsible. And last year, 2 years ago, we went out and actually looked at the market again and still found out it was better to self-insure. And so some of the critics have criticized people as if we never thought about this. But the fact of the matter is, we think about it all the time.
And are forming a committee to look at it.
Yeah, I want to add.
We'll be forming a committee to
wanna
look
add
at
to
it
that.
again, because
I mean,
this is a lot.
it's a significant increase, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about $2.5
Yeah.
million just on the medical line, right? It's broken and we need to fix it. I mean, it's ultimately something that we have to do in conjunction with the town. If it starts with a committee, it starts with a committee, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
There are other options, whether or not they're going to be better fits for Guilford is yet to be determined, but this is going to be one of those games where some years you win based on usage and some years you don't. The last 2 years have been trying.
And Mr. Delventure, I agree with that completely. And I want to add to that, there have also been comments made that the insurance package is too rich and that it needs to be reduced. This board has, in every negotiation with all of our employee associations and unions, has restructured insurance along the way. In the last 15 years, we have moved to HSA plans. We have increased deductibles and we have increased employee shares. As a point of comparison, in 2010, a teacher could select an insurance plan and pay 7% of the overall cost of that insurance plan. Today, every teacher, every employee in the school district pays more, like 21.5% of the cost of every insurance plan. We have increased their share, we have increased deductibles, and we have modified the plan over time. I think the brokenness has been outstripping our plan changes. And we need to find a better way. But I don't want the community to believe that we've been sitting on our hands and not addressing this. We are not throwing bags of cash at our employees to address their medical concerns with. We've done everything we can. And again, we were decreasing medical costs for a period of about 8 years. And in the last 2 years, we've given back all those savings with the extreme increases that we've experienced in the last 2 years.
It's also a balance too. I mean, just like a business, it's, benefits are a mechanism
To attract and retain.
Yes, and unfortunately, this isn't looking good right now for either the town or for our teachers. And so we do need to put a lot of effort into what comes next with healthcare in this town, not just the Board of Education, but the whole town. I do want to ask a question about the special education line item, because I think some of that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, has to do with investments that we've been able to save. How much can be attributed to what we're doing in-house with special needs, particularly the Guilford Institute?
You're asking about the fact that this year we are underspent in
tuition.
So there are a number of things happening. For the last 10 years, we have been building capacity in the school system to keep more of our more challenging students in district. And in fact, Guilford was ahead of the rest of the state in moving in that direction. The state now offers local community seed grants to build local capacity to keep more children in Guilford and spend fewer tuitions when you need to send students out. Over these 10 years, we have grown and built out our pre-K programs all the way through to an alternative high school that didn't exist 10 years ago, to Transition Academy, the Guilford Transition Academy that services students from the age of 18 through the end of the school year in which they turn 22, if they continue to require special educational services. We have a similar transition program that we do in collaboration with the towns of Madison and Clinton. So we have built all of that local capacity, and we have been working to move more of our own students into those slots and reduce what we pay outside in tuition. Just prior to the pandemic, we had reduced what was approximately annually 50 students who were outplaced in Guilford to about 25 students a year who were outplaced in Guilford. That number has crept up again since the pandemic. We do at times outplace students. What happened this year is a combination of both that historical trend of working to move more of our students into the local created capacity that we built, but more significantly, it was also just a series of changes that occurred to a really small number of students, but students who carried significant tuition costs. And so students saw changes in their placements, in their residence, or in their status with us as students for a number of different reasons. What is unusual in this year is that oftentimes those changes happen in both directions. And while we may bring a student back from a really expensive tuitioned out placement and reduce cost there, we have another student locally who is beginning to experience more challenges and needs to go out for at least a period of time. And so they often offset, or as this board knows, we more often than not run in deficit. It is really unusual this year that all of that volatility broke in one direction and often almost completely resulted in us not having to spend tuition dollars that we had budgeted last year. It is an unprecedented year in my time here in Guilford to see that number of changes all break in the same direction, which leaves us with the ability to return money to the town and ask them to direct it to the medical fund this year.
And it's an important point to make, because it just shows how certain investments actually yields greater results, because it not only is saving, but it's keeping these students in district. We're seeing them around town. We're seeing them at local businesses. This is where we should be investing our dollars to continue to grow this program. We've talked about finding a new home for the Transition Academy. It needs to be a priority, because again, we're showing the results of it, not just in the dollars, but also the students enjoying being in town.
It is first better for the children of Guilford to be educated in Guilford, and it is secondarily a prudent fiscal decision to keep those students in district, as the state of Connecticut is now trying to incentivize other communities to do. We have had other communities coming to visit those types of programs that we have built out in Guilford for years now. When Mr. Trotta sat on the Board of Finance, he used to ask me every year if these would ever turn into revenue gen. We do, at a very small level, have other local districts who now seek out Guilford programs as sending districts. So we would never accept a student from another community if it would make class sizes too big or unwieldy. But where we have capacity, we have been able to accept children from other neighboring districts, provide their service, meet their needs as well as the needs of the Guilford students in a really high quality program, and then build those sending communities. It's not something that we do to make money, but when we have the opportunity, it's a fortunate offset to be able to have. And the board sees that every year, every month in your tuition report.
Yeah.
Excellent. So,
That's just the first item.
I was just gonna say, we'll move it along. No, but this is important discussion. So essentially, it's an opportunity to take 200 out of the medical line. It is not coming out of the amount that we will have to pay next year for our employees. It's coming out of an amount we are in the process of returning to the medical fund balance. And we have the opportunity to actually return money to the town and make the recommendation that they put it in the medical fund balance to do that in an immediate fashion. Excellent.
It is
Okay.
important for us to note that Board of Education budgets only exist in one calendar year. And so
Right.
while those
We
are
can't.
two things that are separate in two different calendar years, the town does run a budget that cuts across time and space. And so while we have to view it as two separate actions in two separate years, the town can recognize the fungibility of those funds and recognize that one can offset the other, although in our budgets, that can never happen.
Does anybody else have a question about this before
Right.
Dr. Freeman moves through the list?
We're explaining a reduction to the tax base. I just want to make sure.
No,
everyone's
that's
clear on that.
absolutely. No, absolutely. All right.
The second item is a little bit similar. It is fairly straightforward, but I do want to place an asterisk next to it. We are suggesting here that we additionally reduce the professional development line by an additional $70,000 this year. I do want to note that that is professional development outside of what is provided in-house by the instructional coaches about whom we have talked so much over these last several months. I further want to note that this is a significant reduction to what is left in the professional development line. We also know, again, sort of two things being true at the same time. We also know that the governor sent additional funds to municipalities for educational costs. We do know that Guilford is receiving an additional $70,000 in ECS funding. That has traditionally always gone to the town. There's an expectation that that will go to the town this year, but I believe that there is at least an opportunity for some conversation with the town moving forward. So this reduction, we believe we might be able to offset this year because of other funding opportunities at the state level flowing to Guilford. In either case, this is an item that I want to asterisk for this board, because I see this as a significant one-time reduction, and next year we would want to put these monies back. If we begin to curtail professional development and don't build it back, we will begin to see a spiral where we're falling behind rather than staying at the cutting edge. But I do want to note that with these two items together, again, to a comment that was made from the audience, we can recognize 270,000 of the 525 before we start talking about people and positions. So while both of these are a little creative, while both of these involve a lot of explanation and a little bit of crossing our fingers, I believe it's important at this point when we are talking about the $2 million cut that we are absorbing, that we have these kinds of conversations about numbers of this magnitude, to do everything we can to stay away from the people and the positions who support our kids in our buildings every day. So there's a big part of me that is uncomfortable bringing these numbers. There's also a part of me that is proud to say we can get 270 before I need to start talking about positions this evening.
And this
That
70, sorry.
Yep.
This 70K was from the recent budget bill that was passed, is that?
So the 70 reduction that I'm naming
Yeah.
is specific only to the professional development, and it would be a reduction. We will, as a community, be receiving $70,000 more this year in the ECS grant than we had anticipated. And while that number is usually booked by the town as revenue, grant revenue with all the other grant revenue, and is not usually a one-to-one reduction for our budget, I'm again pointing out that we're making this reduction because we're seeing an equal amount coming in. And to some degree, you have to squint to see it, but I see it as an offset. And again, pointing out that if we can arrange to have those dollars come directly to us, we will be enormously grateful to the town. And this is where they will fill the gap that we've created. But either way, this is a gap that we're creating that I'll want to discuss in next year's budget build about filling.
And other towns are seeing this as
Yeah,
well.
this is part of the package.
Other towns
that-
are seeing
that-
significantly larger dollars.
Yeah.
The biggest cities in the state are seeing millions of dollars, and it is flowing directly to the school system. We're seeing far less because we get a far smaller ECS allocation to start with than those other communities do. There are other communities, you will see news stories about communities saving tens of positions with the monies that are flowing in. Ours isn't that direct, ours isn't that large, but I did want to make the connection, even if it's a little tenuous.
I'm just gonna pause a second. Arnold, I realize you're on Zoom. I want to make sure I don't forget you're there. Do you have any questions yet?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right.
This does then bring us to a point where we need to pivot. And as we make that pivot, I want to point out again, we're absorbing $2 million in reductions from the budget that we first discussed in this room in early January. 80% of our budget is made of positions, of the people that we heard commented about earlier. And of those positions, 55% of them are teachers. We simply employ more teachers than custodians or clerical positions or nurses or administrators. Teachers make up 55% of the approximately 600 employees that work in the district. Employees make up approximately 80% of our budget. It is really hard to find $2 million in reductions without looking at that 80%. And so while I'm excited to bring the 270 to you, I'm again going to note that I reluctantly also have 3 positions that I am adding to this recommended package tonight. And I will start with this one. I am reluctantly recommending a 3rd cut of an instructional coach and specialist. We have already cut one district-wide specialist coach position in the early stages of the budget. When this board met last, after the first failure at referendum, we cut a 2nd coaching position, and I am recommending a 3rd coach reduction tonight. I'm also showing the value of that coach reduction at $122,000, and that again is specific and only available because 2 weeks ago, this board chose to hire a sitting instructional coach to be our next principal at Calvin Lee Elementary School. So because of that principal hiring decision that this board made, there's going to be a vacant coaching position. By making that specifically the 3rd reduction, we will net the entire salary. It is important to note, however, that if we go beyond this level, we do not anticipate any more attrition in those coaching ranks. And so if we go from a 3rd coach reduction, as I'm recommending tonight, to a 4th coaching reduction, it won't be for another $122,000. Coaches are teachers, they are contractual employees like every other teacher, and they have employment rights based on seniority. So even if we cut an additional coaching position tonight, that coach, most of whom have significant experience in the district, would very likely become a classroom teacher and would bump a much less veteran teacher who very likely was hired at the lowest end of the salary scale. So for a budgetary number, we would replace that with likely $65,000 of salary plus the coaching stipend for a number of about $78,000. So the return I hate this, it's not a return on investment. The return on reduction would drop off precipitously if we go from 3 vacancies to 4, 3 cuts to 4 cuts. I also, again, want to note, I said I would come back to this. While the overall teaching reduction is going to be floating around 4% at the end of tonight, if we follow the recommendations I've made, the reduction to the coaching cohort with this third reduction will be 21% of the coaching cohort has been cut. If we take a fourth, we will be approaching 30% of the coaching cohort that we will be reducing in a single budget year after spending 6 years of slowly and carefully building that. I do want to note, and I understand what some of the public perception is of my advocacy for coaching. There is no other group in the school system this year that will be experiencing a 20, 21, or 30% reduction in their numbers this year. It is bigger than any other program or any other employee group that we will be experiencing there. And again, I will go back to everything that Dr. Balistraci said about our coaching model and coaching in it broadly becoming accepted as a best practice in instruction across this country. It is unequivocally not a luxury. It is the way that we support teachers and make them impactful in the classroom. That would be like suggesting that the Yankees pitching coach is a luxury because they hire good talent, or that the resident doctors in the operating room and ER are a luxury because the doctors in training already finished medical school, so they don't need additional on-the-job learning. I just want to be clear. It's the single largest reduction that we're experiencing this year, and it is essential to the work that we do. There's lots of national research that shows the value of coaches in the classrooms, and we see it anecdotally all over our schools. So I just want to be clear, it is not a luxury.
So this position then on the list, represents a reduction, a potential reduction of 122,000. It also does not represent essentially an equivalent reduction in force or what we would term a layoff. So there's not a person, if we took this, that would have to leave the district and not be employed anymore by Guilford Public Schools.
Yeah, and actually,
Okay,
I appreciate you noting that. Yes, again, because we have hired a coach to become a principal, we have a vacancy. We will make this cut and we will not fill that vacancy. So this reduction will in no way generate a layoff.
Okay.
And in fact, if I could take a moment to say here, I should have done this during my opening comments. We've worked diligently, and by we, I mean Mr. Hamill in the HR office. So at every step in this budget build, from my initial draft that had 6 fewer teachers, and as that number has grown at every step along the way, we have been working to track the reductions that we're building in our staffing plan against resignations, retirements, and we are looking at all of our employees who have any additional secondary certifications. So we have been working really thoughtfully with filling vacancies, tracking where we have natural attrition, and in fact, mapping where we may need to reassign people, even involuntarily if necessary, into other teaching positions for which they're qualified and certified, rather than laying people off. And even at the numbers that we're discussing tonight. So as I say that at the end of tonight, we will probably be somewhere between 10 and 13 fewer teachers than we had last year or this year currently. And in that number, I include the coaches. Even at 13, we project that we may walk away with 0 or maybe 1 layoff. We have worked very hard to protect the people who are working in the schools and to make sure that everybody lands in a position before we simply start laying employees off. And that's really important to note. And could have done it in the opening, but I appreciate the reminder now.
Okay, so I'm gonna, does anyone have a question about that or? For the moment? No, okay. I do want us to get through the list.
Yeah,
I'll let you keep
I'll start
going.
picking up, they get.
No,
easier.
yeah, I just.
They get more familiar and easier to discuss. The next item is one FTE of various courses at the high school. It's important to note a couple things. One, we have already reduced the high school by one FTE reduction. That was part of the base budget that I brought forward. That's part of the 6 I keep referencing. This would be a second reduction of one FTE at the high school. We are not seeing this as any full-time position. We are seeing this as individual course sections that we would trim in a number of areas. So for instance, we often schedule 13 sections of freshman and sophomore history to be delivered by the social studies department. What we would be doing this year is, instead of offering 13 sections of freshman history, is we might offer 11 or 12 sections of freshman history. A full-time teacher at the high school teaches 5-year-long courses. So when we're talking about a reduction of one FTE at the high school, it would be 5 sections that wouldn't be offered. So it might be 2 fewer freshman English, 1 fewer sophomore English. That's 3 of the 5 that we would be needing to get to. We have also, and that would be spread across the approximately 10 departments at the high school. Again, we wouldn't be cutting all of the art classes or all of music. It would probably fall predominantly in social studies, science, English, possibly some world language offerings. It would be fewer sections. We don't believe it will force us to not offer any classes. And to the best of their ability, the high school administration will try not to eliminate singleton courses. So if there's a course that's only offered once, that's not the one we're going to cut. If there's a course that's only offered twice, we will try really hard not to cut there. But sometimes numbers drive us to do that. We don't want to offer a course that is offered twice and may only have 7 students or 6 students in each section. We might collapse those. What's difficult here is that we don't do the final scheduling until the student choices are completed. We schedule classes based on student requests. So I can explain what will likely happen, but I can't specifically tell you what will happen. We have also experienced resignations and retirements at the high school, primarily in the departments of PE and science. So again, even though this will become 2 FTE reductions at the high school, this will certainly not need to lead to any layoffs. And we don't believe it will even lead to people experiencing a reduction in their. Sometimes we've had teachers who were full-time this year, but only teach an 80% schedule in the following year. We do not see that happening. Additionally, we have had high school staff who have completed secondary certifications and become more flexible to us. So we have teachers who can teach special ed classes and Italian classes. We have teachers who can teach business classes and Latin classes. And the state has loosened up some of their restrictions, allowing more social studies teachers to teach business and personal finance classes. So we believe we have the flexibility at the high school to make this reduction. And it's also important to note the high school has dropped below 1,000 students for the first time. We're down into the 900s this year. We will be again next year. So we believe that we have the ability to absorb this reduction. Again, I will note, I know that the board has looked at this recommendation from me in previous meetings and rejected this recommendation in previous meetings. We're at $2 million. We believe this is one that may impact flexibility, but it doesn't take away any offerings. And we believe it's time to revisit this recommendation seriously once again.
I have a question.
Yep.
I want to put it in English. This is not reducing anybody from a 1 FTE to a 0.8.
We don't
Right.
believe it
Don't
will.
believe so. This is not a loss of a body. Because
Absolutely
there's
not.
been retirements and things.
No
of that nature.
layoff.
How many are we unaccounted for that we have not announced at any of our meetings? Are there any new ones that we don't know about?
We'll know about next Monday, maybe. New
New
resignations or
retirements.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
No.
I was struggling with pronoun antecedent reference. I don't know if we've got any additional teacher resignations or retirements. However, we have experienced summer moves every single year. And so, right, I don't think we have any coming to you next week. I could be wrong, but I don't believe we do. But we have experienced somebody whose family relocates or somebody who rethinks their career or some other personal change. Every summer, we've seen staffing changes. There hasn't been one that we haven't. But again, we have seen resignations at the high school or retirements rather, resignations and retirements, both in the PE department and the science department. And I'm trying to remember any others off the top of my head.
Just a follow-up though, let's say none of that happens, let's say this year's miraculous, we don't get any of those. This does potentially result in a reduction of from a 1 to a 0.8 or.
It could
something.
possibly, yes.
Okay,
But again, right, it's.
but we just don't know.
Yes, and to be really clear, we have made those determinations before when they simply haven't been budgetary at this level. We have done course selections. We offer lots of really sort of specific courses in world languages, in arts areas, in music areas, and at times we have simply not filled an entire workload for a certain certification and had to inform employees that we don't have 5 courses. You're going from 1.0 to 0.8. It is not an unheard of situation to occur. I will note other communities that had budgets go down are preparing to let 28 positions go, right? And so it's difficult to talk about these numbers and say confidently there will be no layoffs, that we've protected everybody. I can say without hesitation that we have minimized them, and if there are, they will be small in number.
Any other questions about this? And we're all obviously gonna have a chance to then talk as a group and ask more questions of that.
I have a quick question.
Go
So
ahead.
I understand the impact on staff. Can you talk a little bit about the potential impact on students? So if you, I mean, just maybe I'm missing it, but if you're reducing, let's say, freshman English offerings from 10 sections to 9 sections or whatever.
Right.
Does that mean now class sizes are larger or kids have less flexibility and may miss an opportunity?
Yes, it's
Okay.
exactly both of those things, but I would put, and again, right, here's where I want to be a broken record and say, that's why we didn't have these, right? That's why we only had 1 in the base budget that came out. I am reluctantly saying we can go to 2 because while those are exactly the 2 impacts, we believe they will be negligible. So again, if you had 13 sections of freshman history and now you only have 11, those classes will go up marginally. They will stay within the Board of Education guidelines. It's worth noting, we know that we're increasing elementary class size this year with the changes. So it will have a negligible impact on class size. It could be more significant if we always end up running courses at the high school that are under enrolled because they are classes that we really want to offer. They're high interest to a small number of students. And so we have, and then because students want to do a lot of things, we try to offer 2 or 3 sections of those really high interest, but small, right? It's high interest to a small population. So in some of those areas, we may offer 2 sections rather than 3. So again, those class sizes would go up, but in those areas, that would be a positive. That would be where we were running undersized classes and getting them to a much more reasonable class size. It could have some impact on class availability. We always have that. Every year there are singleton classes that not everybody can get into their schedule because we have students who want to take AP in all the different subject areas. And so there's always students who struggle. The high school does a really good job in trying to accommodate that. The administration and the school counselors do a really good job trying. We have moved sections multiple times over the summer to try to get it into a place so students can do multiple things in their schedule. The reality is when a school population starts to drop below 1,000, it is hard for every student to get every course. We do privilege seniors and we privilege juniors. So sometimes it might be a sophomore who doesn't get the class that they really wanted because they'll have another shot in their junior or senior year. We try to absolutely limit seniors who are locked out of a class that they really want for any reason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on that? All right, next.
So I then moved to a teaching position that has been on this list every time that we have met, but it always has been on the bottom half of the list. It has moved up to the top half of the list this time around for a number of reasons. One of which is that a number of the items that the board has rejected before have stayed on the bottom of the list. So rather than bringing something back to you that you rejected in the last meeting, I am bringing this forward through and again, as we think about the distributive nature of the cuts. So coaches and interventionists both support students in very different ways. Coaches support students and students who are struggling in some of the ways that you heard tonight by working really directly with the classroom teacher, often talking about that specific student, but working through the teacher. Every classroom teacher in Guilford Public Schools is an interventionist. They are the first interventionist, and that's important to note. While we have been growing the coaching cohort, we have also historically had a small number of interventionists in the school district. That number has been 6 historically for a very long time. And in this budget, we grew for the first time the interventionist cohort from 6 to 8 in this budget. Coaches impact all students in the school through the ways they worked with teachers. Interventionists impact a very small number of students. They don't have their own class. They work with students who are placed in other teachers' classrooms, sometime in what is called pullout, where they take the student out of class and work with them individually or in a very small group for an intensive intervention, sometime in what is referred to as push in, when they go into the classroom and support students, but they impact a very small targeted number of students with specific needs. This reduction would take us back from 8 interventionists next year to 7. It's still 1 more than we had last year. It's 1 less than we have currently. It would be a reduction to the interventionist cohort of about 12%. We've got 8, we'd be cutting 1. That's about a 12% reduction. It's more than the classroom reduction percentage because we have more classroom teachers than any other employee in the district. It's not nearly as significant as the reduction that we've already made and are talking about deepening to the coaching cohort. I want to be really honest and transparent. If this is a reduction that we make this year, it is very likely that as soon as the budget stabilizes, that I will be asking to return an interventionist. But again, I'll note, we're at the $2 million level. This is not something that I have brought forward in any of the discussions. This isn't a reduction that I built into my base budget. We're at a break glass moment in all of these recommendations that I'm making to you here
This is a
tonight.
position that is not currently filled.
This is a position that is currently filled. However, these teachers, the two that we added this year, we did not go out to hire. We hired the 2 interventionists this year directly out of our own classrooms. It means one of those last 2 in would likely revert to a classroom teacher next year. It gets bundled into that overall classroom reduction that we've been working on, that we think we will be able to run down to 0, but I've learned not to make any promises. It could end up at 1, but we think we can bring it down to 0.
Okay,
Can I
so,
just clarify one thing real quick?
oh,
I'm
sure,
looking
go ahead.
at your budget reduction suggestions from February 9th, 20 of this year. And in fact, you had 2 interventionists on that. So this is something you have brought to us before.
Oh, absolutely.
That
But
we have rejected, yeah.
I did it move up to my 525 reduction? It didn't move up into my recommendation. It was on the bottom half of the page.
No, it was actually in the top half.
Okay, I apologize.
So,
We've done this multiple times so
yes,
far.
we
I just don't want anybody.
Oh,
to,
I
like,
appreciate the
Yeah.
clarification.
So you brought us a list of 5 things here that lead to a total of 525 K, which is the required reduction. And thank you for walking us through those. There is a list, and I think we've seen them, all of these things before. Meaning
Yes,
topics of
we've
conversation,
talked about them
right?
at other meetings, particularly the most recent. Yes.
So the other things for that you're identifying for consideration, another interventionist, 68,000, a world language position, 90,000. A reminder that has been described to us as likely at Adams, and would involve a restructuring, a little bit of a restructuring of world language so that it wouldn't change the world language children are receiving, students are receiving at Adams, but it would reduce that position.
Yeah, it would be a change in the schedule. It wouldn't be an elimination of any world language from either 7th or 8th grade at Adams.
Okay.
Yep.
1 to 4 paraprofessionals, each 25,148. These are currently vacant positions.
Correct.
Info, a technician, a school technician, you've identified either 1 or 2. These are each identified as 36,000. A custodian, we did take a custodian, we reduced the budget by 1 custodian back in February.
This would be a second.
This would be a second, $167,192. A music position 0.5 at 35,000.
Again, very likely at Adams if we went in that direction.
Okay. Curricular stipends, 1 to 4 stipends, each at $6,625. So to be clear about this, these are stipends that teachers in the district, for teachers in the district, have to support curriculum assessment and development. I'm looking at Dr. Goss to make sure I don't misspeak.
Yeah, and if I may there, Dr. Belstrace,
Sure.
I just want to note with those 4 stipends, because we have talked about these several times. I'm not sure that I've made clear enough that those 4 stipends are there to encourage teachers to work in the curriculum office and do curriculum writing work specifically for us outside of contractual hours. They are the only additional support that we have in the curriculum office outside of Dr. Goss and the coaches who are placed in the buildings. It's worth reminding this board that we used to have coaches and district-wide specialist positions, and over the last 2 or 3 budget cycles, we've been eliminating the district-wide specialist positions to place them in buildings as building coaches closer to the student contact in the way that you heard it described today. The first coach specialist that we reduced in this process this year was the last district-wide specialist position, the technology integration specialist. So we've eliminated any of those district-wide positions. We've now this year eliminated, if we act on this recommendation tonight, 2 of the building level coaching positions. The curriculum stipends are the only support we have left in the curriculum office besides Dr. Goss singularly. And last week, when we talked about some of the administrative staffing and the statewide comparisons, Madison reports 8 central office administrators in a district that is smaller than ours. In Guilford, we report 4 central office administrators. We do not carry district-wide curriculum administrators in the way that some other districts do. So while those have been here at every conversation and while we've talked about them, as we cut coaches, we need to think about cutting stipends. To do both begins to conflate.
Okay.
I guess that's my question. The stipends, these 4 that we're talking about, are those with, my understanding is those were supposed to be for teachers.
They go to teachers, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to confirm that it wasn't going to coaches.
So coaches are teachers, but none of these stipends go to coaches.
That's what
Yes,
I'm
yes.
trying to draw that
Yep,
distinction, yeah.
Or 2 of our,
Oh.
2 go to classroom teachers, 2 go to coaches.
Thank you. So 2 do go to coaches.
Okay.
Coaches are teachers in the contract as every other teacher. Yeah.
And then 2 things left on this list, site improvements, you noted TBD, I for obvious reasons, it gives us a place to consider if we want. I will note that we have in a series of reductions, both when the Board of Ed first approved the budget and we reduced, and then 2 requirements from the Board of Finance since. We've taken 50,000 out of site improvements in February and another 19,749. I know that sounds like a weird number, but we were making up an odd number somewhere else in the list in March. And then,
which is why it's a TBD. It could be a number of any value to round off a list if we need to.
Understood, yep. And then the last thing identified here, middle school sports, 72,822.
And again, while I know that the board has roundly rejected that, I bring that back almost more as a comparison item than an actual recommendation, but it is to show that we could eliminate all of the after-school interscholastic sports that we offer at Adams, and it would save us approximately one teacher's salary. And so I know that the board has rejected this. It is not in my recommended bundle, but again, we're reaching $2 million. I thought it needed to be there, both to remind the community that this board has looked at it, didn't give it much interest, but looked at it this year, and as an order of comparison. It is really difficult to get to $2 million in reductions when all athletics at the middle school would only count as one teaching position. It's kind of what forces our hand to need to be looking at positions when we're making cuts of this nature.
All right, excellent, thank you. So you've given us a lot to think about. We have been a lot of these things we've talked about before, but I'm gonna start us at the top in places in which we might find easier decision-making before we get to perhaps some more challenging. And I'm gonna start with medical. So there is an opportunity or proposal that we take 200,000 out of medical. It would come out of the payback from what we took out from the medical fund last year. And we have a proposal for the town to replace it plus some. Is there any further discussion on the medical? Again, we're gonna go through this process by having a discussion, landing kind of generally where I think we're but we're not voting on anything yet, because we know what often we're ending up talking package at the end.
Can the medical number change? Like, can we split the difference on that medical from the 585 and increase it from 200 to
268.
like, yeah, or 292?
Why don't we leave it now to see if we need to flex it?
What
But
would
I
be
hear
the
your
If you're saying, if that's,
impact of that be? Is that something that, Linda, does that make you nervous if we wind up saying, let's split the 585 that we've reduced by and make it up in 2 years for real instead of a third this year and 2/3 next
I'm
year?
gonna answer and say, yes, it does make Ms. Trudeau nervous. I would say that, can we do it? Yes, we certainly can. I would want to touch base with our medical consultant, our medical insurance consultant, and the town financial office before making a change so we meet again a week from tonight. I don't know if that's soon enough. If this board didn't act tonight, but left with a question, do we make the timelines?
Doesn't matter for the timelines because what's
It just shows as a reduction line.
what's published in the paper just shows the total reduction off the bottom because of the timing. We didn't have time to get our list of reductions in there. So it's,
So there
as
is,
far as the publication in the paper, that does not matter. I think as long as we have.
So you're suggesting that we will possibly not make a final vote tonight, and we would wait until next Monday? I'm a little, I am a little concerned about that
I agree.
if any decision here involves a layoff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned about. It's a terrific idea. I'm just saying, if we can't decide tonight, I'm a little bit concerned about that. I mean, we're already,
we also need more
potentially-
than a day for people to kind of understand what's at stake before the town meeting, because that's on
that's
Tuesday.
another.
yeah, it backs it up really close. It leaves voters without, even if it's not published in the newspaper, it leaves voters without a list of what this board is reducing this time in the budget. And it leaves employees, particularly our teachers, unsure and beginning to look at other districts.
Okay,
So what you're saying is we don't have the ability tonight to autonomously make a decision about more than 200,000.
right, because we have already, I have not, because the medical consultant has been consulted in this possibility.
At 200.
And also,
The town financial
and also
office.
the town financial officer.
So Mary Jane and Mitch and
And-
Matt Howie have all
and
been
Mrs.
in these
Trudeau.
conversations with us.
Okay, all right. It was a
Well, let's see what we
a
get.
great idea.
I mean-
Okay,
Oh, I still feel like we can split the difference since that's the theory of what we're doing. We're just not, if we got closer to 50%.
Same theory with a different number.
Right.
so what I'm hearing though, I think, I'm not hearing from everyone, but in general, is there anyone who has a concern about this 200? There's a proposal obviously to see if we increase it, but any concern about 200?
We should keep it on the
Okay,
list.
excellent. Keep it on the list. Professional development, 70,000. Is there anyone who has a concern about this?
So no to that.
Dr. Freeman, can you just talk about the impact a little bit further that that would have for the coming academic year?
My hope is that we recognize offsetting dollars and that it has no impact at all. And so that was the reason that I set up the possibility of the new ECS funds offsetting it. If it were to happen, it means that we would end up needing to reduce the outside contracts that we gain that help with our professional growth and development. Most recently, that has relied heavily on the Harvard Graduate School of Education and Partners for Educational Leadership. We've worked really well with a group of other schools working on math instruction and changing the math instruction that we particularly focused at the high school. And we've seen really good progress there. It could result in us having to pull out of something beneficial like one of those relationships if we don't offset these funds elsewhere. And again, it interacts with the coaching reductions. And so, right, we rely on most of our professional development now in-house. It's professional learning that happens on the ground in your classroom, looking at your real kids and your actual data. And so to be cutting the coaching supports by 20 or 30%, the people that do that work, and if we don't offset this, then it begins to be a real dearth of professional learning, and districts end up stagnating and then ultimately going backwards. So I believe it will have no impact, but I don't have all the details there, and so I need to just be clear that it could have that impact. If it does end up that we need to back out of one of those contract relationships, then it's really important that we stop the instructional coaching cuts at 3 and that we don't begin discussing 4 here tonight if we're gonna be looking at that 70 as well as other items.
And I mean, I'm gonna venture to say, and I don't mean this in any way, except just realistically and honestly, if there was an easy way to do this without impact, this meeting would have ended 5 minutes ago. So, all right, so that's a great question, Amy. Thank you. Are there other questions around this? Are there, is this something that we're comfortable keeping on the list at this time?
Yes.
Arnold, any, I'm gonna check with you occasionally so we don't forget you're there or miss you.
I'm good
Okay,
with the 70,000.
okay, thank you. An instructional coach, for the amount of 122,000, because in fact, this is a current vacancy. This is the amount that the person that held that vacancy, or will be a current vacancy when this person becomes the principal of our elementary school. So it would give us 122,000 reduction without a layoff. How do people feel about this? Any concerns about this consideration?
No concern.
No concerns.
I-
Yes, go ahead.
My concern is essentially programmatic,
Yep.
and I'm wondering how much the loss of this vacancy, which was actually a filled position, is going to impact your programmatic goals as it applies to coaching.
So I appreciate the question. The vacancy will be created at an elementary level. We will be moving coaching support from secondary levels to maintain the coherence of the instructional model as it currently exists, K through 6. What's happening with these 3 coaching vacancies, with these 3 reductions, we've eliminated the last of the district-wide positions, and we will now be eliminating 2 positions that will impact coaching supports 7 through 12. What we are trying to do is to maintain the coherence of the system at the elementary level, where we believe it is most important that all of our students start out strong, and it's where we began building out our coaching model. We are impacting the secondary level, which was the last place that we've grown out, and it was one of the things that we were really proud of the coaching model in Guilford, is that we tried to afford it to all teachers. So it's a really good question. It's going to reduce coaching supports and opportunities at that secondary 7 through 12 level.
Okay, and I mean, I raised this question somewhat rhetorically, in order for the other board members to start looking into. I know most of you have, but to start looking into the efficacy of coaching. And I want the town to understand this as well, that this coaching model that our administration is promoting is incredibly
It's more impactful and effective than our technology.
Incredibly effective. So,
We lost you, Arnold.
Arnold, so sorry, could you repeat, we lost you at incredibly effective? Could you keep talking from that point?
Still frozen.
He looks still frozen.
Dial in.
We got you back, Arnold.
Arnold, we've got your back.
You got me back.
Say it really quick.
And I know we're trying to move this along. My point is that, the efficacy of coaching as a model is irrefutable. It takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of investment, but the payoffs long run are huge. So I just want the town and the board to understand that. That's all.
Thank you, yes. Any other thoughts on that line? It sounds like something. Okay, that we'll consider here. Guilford High School, 1 FTE equivalent, essentially various. A class, course offering here, if it's a duplication of course offering there, 65,000. Discussion about that. And let's just name, we're getting into things that none of us.
You've heard me say A list, B list, C
Yes.
list. That is not on my A list.
Okay,
Agreed.
all right. It is on my A list, not because I love the idea, but because I don't like other ideas even more. The B list is worse. So, I'm happy, should we kind of move on to something else, and then we'll have a pool of things we're talking about. Okay, interventionist, $68,000. Thoughts on that?
That's a no for me.
Hard
Yeah,
no.
no as well.
That's a no for me too.
And if I could just say just a short thing.
Of course,
about
yes.
Why I feel so strongly about that. And again, I understand and I believe that the coaching model is the highest form and is something that is necessary to have going forward. And I disagree with Mr. Scretta in that I do think it's something that we need to look at in this district. We've had coaching now for 15 years. And yet, for my time on the board, whenever we have the round table with the teachers, the one thing that, even though they've had the coaching model in place, the one thing that they absolutely insist on is interventionists. So for me, that speaks volumes, that they've had this coaching, almost every teacher has been touched by the coaching, that they're still begging for interventionists. And so there's also a ton of research that shows that intervention and early intervention very clearly has immediate and effective results and actually reduces the need for special ed costs later on. So for me, having the 8 interventionists is great. And that is why I feel so strongly about that model. Again, I fully buy into the coaching model. I just question at this moment if it is actually being, I don't know what the right phrase is. I keep saying looking for the data, but that's not the right thing. I just don't know if where it stands right now is the perfect model for Guilford, in that maybe it does need some tweaks. I know that in the last budget meeting, Dr. Freeman, you compared it to Milford and said that in the elementary schools, I think you said there were 4 coaches in each elementary school. But what you left out is that they're half coach, half interventionist. So, right, there's other models that I just need to do a deeper dive and see really what is the most effective for this town, because we are a high performing town we have great teachers, we have great staff, we have all these great things. Just want to make it all better and efficient and cost effective.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And I think if anything has been made clear during this budget cycle, as things got difficult, it's become very clear that we need to talk about coaching in Guilford Public
Yeah.
Schools. Yes, the Milford model is split. It's not 50-50. It's more like 80-20. Every
Yeah.
coach does a very little bit of intervention, but what they did is they eliminated 12 interventionist positions district-wide to get to the number of coaches that they had, and then asked each coach to do a little hands-on instruction with students. We were really proud last year to grow the 2 interventionists, because in Guilford, as with all things, we are a both-and approach. It shouldn't be coaching or intervention. So I've made my presentation. I would only note we're cutting 3 coaches and we haven't cut any interventionists yet. That's why I'm presenting one today. It is about the distributive approach. It's not about arguing with the effectiveness of an intervention or not supporting interventionists as fervently as I support coaches. It's just that we haven't touched that group yet, and we're at $2 million.
And it's the same thing that the teachers have asked consistently for. So
Understood.
they're in the classrooms. That's where I'm gonna stick with.
Okay, so I'm not hearing support for the interventionist, which also means that I think we can take it off the
Bottomless.
bottom list as well. Again, these are not final decisions. If the interventionist is off the top list at 68,000, and this is not to say there is a discussion around some of the other things. There's 68,000 that we need to get to 525. We have a list in front of us. I think there are a couple of things. I don't want to assume that past discussions are going to dictate how we decide tonight. However, I feel pretty safe in saying that middle school sports is not something I'm interested in considering.
Doctor, I suggest that if we're going to take 68,000 off of the top list, that we go straight and begin a conversation about site improvements.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of these items have been discussed before, and while I hate the idea of buying more deferred maintenance, there was a comment again made earlier that rather than people, we've spent 15 years building up that line. If we need to go backwards this year, I would rather go backwards this year than start looking at other positions that, again, you have already discussed and talk about taking more positions out of this budget.
I don't disagree. I think I'd like to try to get to where we could get to understand what that level of reduction in that line is. I don't want to.
I'm so sorry, I'm not
I
quite
don't want
following.
to start with a base number for site improvements.
Okay,
Because ultimately
But-
that's going to drive our other cuts.
okay,
Right? So if we focus on what we're all proposing as a board for cuts, we need to figure out what that gets us to.
Yep.
Where we get to might dictate where we go with site improvement.
okay. So, but then, what you're proposing is you have some other suggestions from.
Yeah, I just
the
don't want
others.
site improvements to drive the conversation.
No. Well, I think that the opportunity was to simply replace the 68,000, but if other people want.
That was my suggestion.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So, let's have some discussion about, some of these, other items. One, is potentially, information technology specialist. We have not, school technician, we have not. This is a terrible way to talk about this. We haven't touched that group, yet. There's a potential for 36,000 there. We did take.
I think we did take one. Did we take one?
Did not.
No, we did not.
We discussed one. We actually
discussed it.
We discussed one. We actually started discussing 2, and then we
No.
backed away. We have not reduced a technician in this budget process yet this year.
We have overall, in terms of positions, we, the board, so this is after the budget that Dr. Freeman brought to us with the 2 kindergarten teachers that had been added and then reduced, and the 6 other teaching positions. We've taken 1 full-time custodian, an instructional coach, savings from potential retirements. That's obviously not a person, but it goes under salaries. We've taken the elementary special education coordinator that was proposed. We've taken a second instructional coach, and we've taken one paraprofessional. That's what we've taken to date in terms of positions.
That's correct.
So again, I think there's perhaps a consideration for this information technology school technician if we don't want if we want to consider that besides site improvements. I'm not sure. Again, we've already taken one paraprofessional. We know these positions are vacant at the moment. We do know, I did look that our budgets, final budgets in the last 2 completed years, even when we had taken 2 paraprofessional positions in each of those budgets before finalizing, both of the last 2 years finished the year with that line 90%, approximately 90% spent. Which meant there was anywhere from, I think, like 200 to 250,000 left over. That's just a 2-year trend.
Because we couldn't fill them, not because we didn't think they were needed.
Well, so Dr.
Yeah.
Bell, Tracy and I were having a conversation earlier, and I thought it was helpful. It might be helpful to think about paraprofessionals. It is a much more fluid line than the teaching line is. So when we hire in teachers, we hire the number at the beginning of the year, and that number is the number that we have at the close of the year. The paraprofessional line is much more fluid. Every year when we talk about reducing paraprofessionals, I always say, remember, if at any time an IEP makes it clear that a student requires paraprofessional support, we will provide that support. So it is a budget line that essentially never has a cap. It is more of a projection every year as tuition is. And in the last 2 years, in part because we have been unable to keep the positions filled, it is a much more itinerant group. We have some paraprofessionals who have been with us for 20 and 30 years. But oftentimes we have people who stay for a much shorter stay and sometimes don't even complete a full school year. And as student needs change up and down, that staffing level ranges up and down. And so in the last 2 years, we have finished the year with surplus in that line rather than running into deficit in that line. So when we suggested that we think we could remove up to 5 paraprofessional positions, because we've had sort of between 4 and 9 vacancies that we've been running all this year. Additionally, since we got the outside evaluation from New Solutions, they strongly recommended that we were not being as efficient with our paraprofessional assignments as possible. So we have been looking at scheduling, and rather than assigning one-on-one paraprofessionals, we've tried to find students with like needs and similar profiles, place them together, and allow one adult to support 2 or 3 children. It provides a greater social setting as well as more efficient use of the paraprofessionals. So again, we've reduced 1 so far in this budget cycle. We could reduce another additional 1 or 2. It doesn't mean that we would ever leave a student with their needs not being met, but it might be helpful to think of it more like the tuition line than the teacher line.
So
Oh, sorry.
can you talk about where that money would come from? Like, let's say we cut 2 paras tonight hypothetically, and then next year we need 3 paras. So now we're -3. Where do we get the money to buy those 3 paras?
So we would fund those positions out of the salary line in the immediate need. At the end of the year, as we do every year, when we come to June and we say that the para salary line ran over, but if any other salary line ran under, we could internally just make that adjustment. Salary dollars can move. So we budget by individual lines, but with the exception of this school year, we have for the last several years had unspent custodial salaries because we ran really positively on overtime for snow removal. And so in most years, it could have moved from there. More significantly, in this school year, we might then come to you at the end of the school year and say, we want to move money from the tuition line because we were so under in tuition to the salary line specifically to offset the overage in paraprofessionals. but we can't move from one line to another without board approval.
Okay.
So we could move internally from one salary line to another, like custodian to para, if we were going to go from from tuition to, it's what you would do during that cleanup meeting every June, where you do those big sweeping transfers to make sure all of the 7 major budget lines all finish in the black.
Having said what you just said, there was some wag out there tonight saying, the school system really has a surplus of money and sitting around there. And that proves the case. The reality is, budget this large, 80 million, $90 million, there's always some sort
We
of.
went 70.
And we're lucky that in most cases, we have the flexibility at the end. And history's been that, not that we've got too much money, but because systems always have, but we've been closing our budgets with less than 0.5%
Yes.
left over per year on $90 million. That is actually unbelievable.
That's the point that I was going to make. So while there is always that movement within the budget, we have, with a couple broad exceptions, this year is going to be an exception because of this unprecedented special ed experience. The year that we closed all of our schools in March because COVID was an exception. But in most given years, we return a very small amount of our dollars unspent because we manage it very carefully and we make those transitions thoughtfully and carefully. We have never, in my experience in Guilford Public Schools or in anybody's recent memory, had to go back to the town for a special appropriation for ever being overspent on our budget. We always worked within the existing budget.
I want to go back to this, and I know people are wanting to consider amounts, but I just want to go back to the site improvement because, to state the obvious, this is not a person. Site improvements, just remind us all, site improvement dollars go to.
Site improvement dollars essentially go to preventative or responsive maintenance for small dollar items that occur annually during the school year that would not be large enough or that we did not plan in advance well enough to address with a bonded capital request. So it could be every year, the best examples, every year there's a certain amount of carpet in the school district that needs to be replaced because it has become old, worn, sticky, otherwise unacceptable, and carpet needs to be replaced. Ceiling tiles in public buildings, you have a leak and you end up with stained, sagging ceiling tiles. So we carry an allowance every year to replace blinds and curtains, carpets, ceiling tiles, tile when it becomes cracked, and then there's a certain amount where if bathrooms have become outdated and need to be updated, Mr. Gurnham is constantly working around the district, replacing the oldest water fountains or updating the oldest bathrooms. There was a time not long ago where we were working to update elementary classrooms and removing things like coat closets from the 50s that we still have in some of our elementary classrooms. But it is essentially that running amount that we have annually to stay ahead of maintenance and not allow the buildings to begin to get run down, because small maintenance lapses ultimately cascade and lead to big maintenance lapses. But those big maintenance projects we take care of through the capital requests,
Right.
bonding requests that we make every year.
And so while we know, because we sit in operations meetings every month, that sometimes what gets covered by that line is a leak that Mr. Gurnham couldn't possibly have planned for.
Yep.
What you are explaining is that some of it sounds like things that get planned for the next year, so that a reduction in that line could mean that, I'm making this up, several classrooms will have their carpet replaced the following year instead of in the 26-27 year.
Yes, or bathrooms that were targeted for renovation will be pushed off another year or two. Or worst case scenario, that the stained and sagging ceiling tiles that we wanted to replace don't get replaced. But
Okay.
the way the line works is that Mr. Gurnham plans for the improvement projects but then holds off on implementing those until later in the year.
Yes.
We wait until we know we've gotten over the hump.
Yep.
We've addressed the emergencies that came up unexpectedly and said, well, we don't have the money this year for the planned improvements because the emergencies ate it up. Or we've made it into November and December, haven't been spending out on emergencies. It's time to start picking off a few of the first improvement plans. So it would be the improvements that were the first to go. We spent years trying to build this line item up to 1% of the annual budget.
Thank you, my
Never-
colleague John Ireland. from
We've
years
never
ago.
really gotten there, and now in this budget, I think we're already beginning to backslide. So if we make some thoughtful reductions to that line tonight, we're beginning to go backward, and we will need to then thoughtfully and consciously start rebuilding, not all in one year, but beginning to target and rebuild.
But in a year when we're looking at potentially
People-
multiple positions, this might be might be the time.
It is $2 million. It's break glass. I cannot argue with a fairly significant reduction to site improvement at this point in the process. If we were talking about this in February, I would have been pushing back and talking
Sure.
about the importance of protecting the physical investment of the buildings. But this year may not be the year to make that argument any longer.
All right. All right, we've talked medical, we've talked professional development, we've talked this one, instructional coach. And appeared to have, and not holding anyone to this general agreement on those. The GHS, one full-time equivalent, sounds like there might be mixed reaction to that. We have this possibility of site improvements. Willing to entertain, other things that people want to discuss, before we lead into some final discussion.
I'd just like to just go back to the para discussion and just
Sure.
understand a little bit more.
Okay,
So, I know last year we reduced that line by two paras.
yep,
And the year before, did we similarly reduce it by
yes,
2 years?
I literally
Right,
just
right.
looked at this afternoon
Right,
to remind
okay.
myself, yeah.
And so this year so far, we've reduced it by 1
Mhm.
from the proposal,
Yes,
but the proposal itself was 4.5 more than it was the previous year, because the 2 that got reduced went back in.
do you mean the,
The
in our budget?
paras, they went up to 102.
This is a little contradictory. So we asked for more over the budgeted line this year and wanted to grow back to the original number. And at the same time have been unable to fill and keep those positions filled. And so have been looking at schedules and restructuring to meet all the students' needs with the paras we have in the positions, while we've been continually posting advertising and interviewing to try to fill the positions. So again, the conversation now that we consider going from 1 to 2 or 3 now is again reluctantly recognizing the reality of the fiscal situation we're in and our inability to keep those positions filled regardless of whether we budget them or not. And putting those two realities together, suggesting that we take the reduction, and then again noting, as I always do, that if the need is there, we will create the position and do everything within our power to fill the position. And regardless, we're required to find a way to meet that student's needs, even if we can't fill the position we create. So we never get to go to a PPT and tell a parent, or go to a due process and tell the state, we advertised, we tried, we couldn't fill the position, the student just didn't get the support their IEP called for. We have to find a way to provide the support. So whether it means using a certified person, whether it means changing schedules, even if we are doing everything we can to find and fill the position unsuccessfully.
And the numbers that end up in the budget in terms of like the estimation, those come as a result of the PPTs and the calculations that are done there in terms of the student needs.
It comes through an evaluation of what we had in place last year, how many of those students are moving forward, essentially with unchanged PPTs, The dollar amount that was in the last year's budget and the amount of that dollar amount that was spent, whether it was above or below that amount. And then again, like with tuition, it is an estimated amount that is put in there. That is different than the actual hard calculation when we say these are the actual 330 teachers we've hired. These are the levels they sit at. These are their actual salaries. And therefore, here's a dollar amount that is accurate to the last decimal. This is again a projection, and we work within that projection.
I'm just wondering if we're having trouble filling these positions, and last year we reduced by 2, and the year before we reduced by 2. If we're already increasing or proposing an increase, does it make sense to decrease by 2 again this year instead of just the 1?
It doesn't seem like the most rational decision, but at this point in the conversation and needing to find, again, we are looking for options to present to the board. This would be a way to reduce the budget. We believe that we went up because we wanted to go up. If the financial situation had been good, we would have been more comfortable having a higher budget to work within and likely come in underspent. This is turning that on its head, but we're making decisions that we would rather not be making at this time.
So you're suggesting consideration of one paraprofessional position tonight as we look at the budget, having already taken one?
Having taken 1 already this year,
Mhm.
but having taken 2 the previous year, and that worked out okay, and taking 2 the previous year, and that worked out okay.
Okay,
And already on the budget, we're already adding back in the 2 from last year.
right.
This brings us back to Pat,
Brings us
sort of.
back to where we are.
Yes.
There's not an
Yes.
individual
That's
in the
exactly.
position right now,
So-
so it's
right.
not.
It's not a layoff,
Speak
it's
to
not a
that.
real person, and it brings us back to where we started.
Speak to the
Right,
fact that
right.
it's not someone that's in the position, because ultimately I think I'm hearing 2 different things. I'm hearing that we're putting these positions into the budget so that when we need them, we have them. And then there's other positions in which we can't fill. So how many of the paraprofession positions right now are needed but unfilled?
I would need Mr. Scanziano to help me tease that out. I'm not.
But that is a condition that exists,
No,
right?
no, what
That's not.
what I would say was that we are now, and again, I'm speaking at a bit of a distance. I would want to talk to Mr. Scanziano, and I'd want to talk to the special ed coordinators who are sitting in those PPTs and hearing from the parents. I don't know that every parent of a special ed child would characterize it the way that I'm characterizing it. My understanding is that through this school year, we've fluctuated from about 3 to 9 vacant paraprofessional positions because we've been unable to find and fill those positions. We are, however, finding ways to meet the needs of the students, and that is happening because the special ed coordinators are working with their teams and they're being as creative as necessary to meet the needs of those students, even though we would prefer to be able to fill another para position. And then Mr. Scanziano is helping them, and when necessary, moving from one building to another, because if there is student needs that are emergent in one location and another building where the students are all generally doing really well, we might relocate a para from one position, from one building to another to meet a new or emergent need, and then backfill more creatively at the other location. So again, we would love to be able to fill all of the positions and hire at this level. But when you combine the fiscal reality with our inability to fill, it's not unlike the decision we made at the elementary level to reduce foreign language some years ago.
Sure.
Right? Part of our concern was that we were unable in the last year that we had world language at all 4 schools to hire teachers to provide it at all 4 schools. So while we were advertising that we were offering world language, we were actually offering a science exploratory position in one school, because we could hire a generalist K-6 certified, but we couldn't find and hire a world language teacher for those K-6 schools. So it's a little bit of that confluence. It's recognizing the challenging fiscal reality, acknowledging the reality that we haven't been able to fill them anyway, and saying this is a place to make, again, a reduction of 2 as we did last year. We wanted to go up by 2, we weren't able to, but let's just acknowledge that and go back to the starting point by reducing the 2 that were in fact an increase. That's a lot of words.
Again, I just, from this perspective, I look at positions that are we can't fill and my mind goes to why, right? We have many positions in the school that are filled. We rarely have, problems filling roles. This seems to be one that is a sticking point.
And para shortages are not unique to Guilford. There's a para shortage all over the state. There's a shortage of special education teachers all over the state, which then exacerbates the para shortage. A lot of our paras used to be teachers who secured special ed certification but hadn't found a job yet. And so they would come to us to get a year or two of experience to help them land that special education job. People are moving directly into special ed teaching jobs, and that feeder line into the para position is not there to the degree that it was before. And para positions are becoming challenging, and I don't mean to say, and a little more thankless than they were before. They're not highly paid. They're often in settings with students who are experiencing significant challenges. We have students in our public schools now that 20 years ago would have gone to specialty schools, would not have been in our public schools. Students with medical challenges, students with behavioral challenges, students that at times are really trying to work with. So there's a paraprofessional shortage across the country and really significantly in Connecticut, rather.
All right, so that's an idea. Other thoughts?
Chromebooks. Why do we not see Chromebooks anywhere on here? Is there a way that we can reduce Chromebooks in kindergarten or something? Like, is there a $50,000 Chromebook reduction we can take?
Well, I actually have a proposal to that, and that would be, what if we defer the capital lease a year?
If we deferred the entire lease.
Yep.
Didn't we already, I think we already,
So I may invite Mr. Mitchell to comment, but what we do with the capital lease is that we buy, and Kevin, I'm gonna do this in really broad terms. Kevin and Linda are both gonna need to help me on this. With the capital lease, what we do is we buy machines for student use and teacher use and anticipate a 5-year life cycle to those machines. And so every year we're purchasing about 20% of the machines that we would need to, and we made a really intentional decision a number of years ago to move to the 1-to-1 level, so that a teacher who wanted to use a machine, a device in her classroom didn't need to schedule that in advance, didn't need to say, I need the 3rd grade computers today because we're going to be doing something with Chromebooks or computers or tablets. At the elementary level, every teacher had a set in the classroom. Starting in grade 5, every student had one that traveled with them home and in around their classes. We anticipate a 5-year life cycle and we purchase. So if we just did not put out a lease this year, and that lease has now grown to include some infrastructure components as well as some other hard components like trucks. We've been purchasing trucks in the same leasing model and in the same bundle. Thank you, Mr. Sands.
yeah.
If we
That's right.
simply didn't do the lease this year, we would be we would be saying that at some level, we're gonna go 6 years.
Or we'd need to, push it to 6 this year and maybe bump up the repairs to 10 or 20 so that we're covered, so that those 5 years that we're stretching to 6, we at least have a budget there to repair them or replace them.
That's the real high level description. Kevin or Linda, do you want to add any more detailed concerns? And then I'll talk about the instructional questions.
My only concern with deferring a whole year is it'll definitely put us behind. I usually defer to putting the machines in the classrooms for the kids and neglect some of the stuff in the closets. So I wouldn't want to do that. The program's driven by whatever Amity wants to put out there so that we have what the teachers need. So modifying the program, but right now maintaining those machines at that age is basically what we can do with the tech support we have to keep them going. We definitely don't have a ton of people fixing the machines. I think it would be pretty detrimental to the whole program if you just punted on a whole year. But
Go ahead.
Sorry, so the capital lease includes other items besides the Chromebooks. Okay, so it includes the Mac lab, display replacements, the servers, and a facilities vehicle.
Do we also, I feel like we've had a conversation about this, and then correct me if I'm misremembering. when there's been discussion of taking out pieces of it, I'm not
We
speaking
lose
to.
the ability to,
We lose-
to leverage the loan.
That's right.
Yes,
That's
yes,
right.
the
So
financing.
the idea of decreasing it by a certain amount because we're decreasing it by,
$395,000.
or Chromebooks for a certain group of our students, et cetera. But we are gonna have trouble getting a lease. We are already gotten to the point over the last couple of years where we only have two vendors that even will bid with us anymore because the lease is relatively small. Am I,
Right, that's correct.
okay,
So if we were to take out, and it's roughly $400,000 out of the lease, we'd end up with a $235,000 lease, and I don't know if we would get
we would get
anyone
anyone.
to give us a proposal on that.
And it's really important to note, I know that most of the board members know this, but I'm not sure that all the audience does. If we reduce our lease this year by $400,000, we don't save $400,000. We save 1/5 of that in this year's budget.
Yeah, we're looking at $147,000 line item with the capital lease.
Yes.
So this would be.
If we were to eliminate the entire lease,
Yeah.
that would be the savings.
Now, instructionally, again, a major reason for wanting every class to have the class set is that it allows every teacher to work with those Chromebooks without having to plan and get the computer lab. I don't have to bring my students down to a computer lab, or I don't need to schedule the 3rd grade cart. They all have access to it when it is most natural and most organic for them to use it. It is important to note that the state of Connecticut requires our students to take the annual assessments in grades 3 through 8 on a Chromebook. So we would not want to eliminate their exposure to Chromebooks and their comfort level with Chromebooks and only have them see it for the first time when they sit down to take the assessment as 3rd graders. And so
I'm not advocating against getting rid of Chromebooks. I am
Yeah.
advocating for a workshop in which we could talk
Absolutely.
And I think
about
that's
Yeah.
where we're getting.
about how we
that's where
choose
we're getting.
Chromebooks, because there's
Yes.
a lot of misinformation and disinformation going around the use of
Yes.
Chromebooks. But it is worth looking at what an extra year would do to us if we
Yep.
were to stretch it out. Because this is a significant amount that we could potentially not do a capital lease this year and defer these items until next year.
If we didn't do the lease completely this year, would that place us at risk of losing it a year later? Or is it simply the dollar amount, but not the regularity with which we request?
It's a dollar amount.
It's just a dollar amount.
It would be
So cutting it in half would place us at risk about not getting a
Not
bid.
getting them.
But
Yeah.
eliminating it completely would add the additional, it wouldn't just be taking out a year of Chromebooks, it would be cutting a truck that we were gonna purchase this
I would argue
year.
the truck could probably be purchased and at least separately from a capital.
Yes, that one we would probably be, I don't know if we get the same.
Structured lease.
Correct. It'd be
Yeah.
just the value of the actual vehicle.
I know.
But you are also creating a fiscal cliff. Because with the cycle of the lease now, we have a lease payment drop off and we add a new lease. We don't
Next year,
do,
we have
we
to,
don't do a lease this year. You're gonna have that large increase in the following year when we add a lease back in.
You're gonna have. Yes, you're gonna build back in that $100 and some odd $1,000 that we were deferring this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is different than some of the other decisions we might be making tonight. Right.
No, Kristen, you brought it up. I had to kind of jump on an idea that I was thinking about. I
Okay.
mean, it's.
Other things that board members want us to consider as we're talking here. I have a site improvement consideration. I have one paraprofessional consideration.
I'd like to talk about deferring the curriculum stipends, all 4 of them.
so.
I want them. We've gone without them for a few years now. I think I'm asking for 1 more year. That's all I'm asking for.
Oh, I understand that, but I do want to note that again, we have also eliminated the 3 district-wide specialist positions. So we have previously had a district-wide math specialist who did a significant amount of math curriculum work. We then had a STEM specialist who did a significant amount of curricular work. And then we have had the technology integrations. Those have all been eliminated as the coaches have been placed in the schools closest to the students and supporting the teachers directly. So now with all 3 of the district-wide specialists positions gone. With 2 of the coaching positions gone, one of our high school coach did a significant amount of curricular work at the high school level, specifically in science and in PE, and all those curricula were presented to the board. My concern there is that we are really beginning to target, I apologize for using the word, I just can't come up with a better one right now, core tier 1 instruction. We've already cut a number of classroom teaching positions. We're now cutting coaching positions. And if we take away the only curricular support that we have besides an individual sitting to my left, we are protecting, there was a comment tonight about making sure we protect the most vulnerable students. But tier 1, mainstream instruction is the core of what we do. And and again, I'll note Madison has 8 central office administrators because they have curriculum administrators. We had specialists that we've eliminated. We've created stipends to try to fill that gap. And if we take those away, I really worry that we're really targeting that core tier 1 instruction and the curriculum on which that instruction takes place. And I'm really beginning to sweat about how much of these cuts are landing at that level.
But what does the 26-27 year look like for those 4 individuals that would be receiving? What's the total per person?
It's $6,000.
$1,000 in stipends. What does the 26-27 year look like in terms of curriculum that needs reworking?
Well, we have not had any major overhaul to curriculum since 2017. That was the last time there was a regular cycle. We had just begun this year to rebuild that regular cycle of curriculum revision. And so that would be a couple of additional courses in social studies, which were begun this year. That would be, we'd be looking at geometry and probably algebra 2 in math. But we'd be looking generally at the 7-12 band for math. And that would be to continue the work that we've done with portrait of graduate integration throughout the elementary level. And then there is a position that coordinates all of those pieces and creates those timelines. And make sure that there's a process for the way that system works.
Jen, did you? I'll take you over.
I was just thinking about the curriculum revision and you started the process of curriculum revision and you started to answer that question. And I'm just gonna say it back to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So you're saying the curriculum we're currently using is almost 10 years without any revision, which in the world of curriculum, and that is not to say that teachers are not modifying and adjusting things in accordance with high quality instruction and the needs of their students. I understand that. But in the life of curriculum, that is relatively outdated or old. Like it's
Generally
time.
5 to 7 years is considered acceptable.
And to eliminate these folks, then the curriculum would continue to be revised, but the pool of voices contributing to that revision would be reduced to whom? Right, so like if you don't, because this is, in my mind, these 2 teachers are 2 on the ground people who are working with the curriculum that bring a certain expertise. Then you have 2 coaches who are bringing a different level of expertise, I'm assuming yourself. So if we reduce the stipends, who does the revision?
We could be falling back to a model where we look to put volunteer committees together over the summer, which is what we were using before the stipends. And one of the reasons we became late is that after the pandemic, we weren't getting teachers to come in and do the summer work. Teachers were not available or willing to come in during the summers to do that level of work. So offering the stipends in one way is just moving the dollars from summer to the year, but it was a way to get 4 people that really spend time working, getting to know the process and the cycle, developing some skill and building some leadership for their resume that they could then use right as a growth opportunity for the teachers, because the other model simply wasn't working.
Wasn't happening anymore. And teachers have been incredibly grateful. I've been surprised by how grateful they've been for this leadership this year, because they feel like their voices are being heard, like they are actually the ones authoring the curriculum. Whereas in many districts and in past, it's really been someone sitting in an office writing curriculum, telling them to do it. And now the teachers are the ones who are offering curriculum.
And the hidden benefit of that is, and maybe the teachers who do this for a pittance, I mean, we're talking about very little money here for the amount of work that's required. But the benefit to the teachers is that they become experts more than they were before, and they become then permanent experts for us thereafter. But we're building institutional capacity. We're not spending money, we're investing it.
And what we found is that the teachers have experienced this as a professional development opportunity. They have come to us and said, I didn't think I was gonna learn anything in that process, and it was wonderful. I learned so much. So, and I need to clarify, it's not that 2 of these stipends go specifically to coaches, it's that in this moment they happen
Yeah.
to. There were 4 stipends open.
They
to
were
anyone.
posted to any teacher in the
Yes.
district. They were posted to all teachers, which is why I was trying to make that clarification. Just happens to be 2 and 2. They're not structured that way. I would much prefer at this point to absorb a $25,000 reduction to site improvement
Right.
than to see those go on top of the 3 coaches that it looks like we're definitely losing.
I have reservations about the return on the investment that we get for that. I can't do 6,625 times 4 that quickly, but.
26,500.
Thank you. But it seems, it's a bigger getting a huge return on.
Can I just say something though? It's been 2.5 hours. I think everybody's getting really tired. I am a little upset that you put something in here that you absolutely don't want to be included, and we just spent 10 minutes talking about it after 2.5 hours.
So
I want to get this thing moving along, and I think we need to start getting down to bottom line, because we're losing people, including us, because it's been a long day.
Well, so Ms. Baldwin, I appreciate that, but I gave you my recommended package in the top. And
Yep.
so if we just want to look at the 5 bullet items that I presented, that is what I walked into the room recommending. But to the point made earlier, this board has never been a rubber stamp to me. And so the items on the bottom are items that we've discussed previously. It's my responsibility to give you alternatives to my recommendation, not just my recommendation to you.
I also realize it's getting late, but this is a really important discussion.
No, I understand.
So I want to make sure everyone's ideas get heard and responded to. Arnold, at the risk of being annoying, checking in with you again, because I think it's harder to speak up when you're farther away. Is there anything you want us to consider or talk about?
I think we should propose a motion.
I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, let's, let me just see before anything like that happens, are there other things? So again, I'm repeating myself, but just putting us where we are. We have medical that we seem to be generally in agreement with. Professional development at 70,000, general agreement. Instructional coach, vacant position at the moment, or will be vacant, 122,000. It sounded like there was some support for the GHS position, but it sounds like I'm less clear about where everyone stands on that. I do support that. We've heard site improvement, 1 paraprofessional is a possibility. There was obviously just the question around curricular stipends. Is there anything else before we tackle what we have here that anyone
Just
wants to?
Question, is
Sure.
it possible to go back to the original idea that we increase this medical line by call it 50 grand, just for easy math? Is it possible that we do something like take 50 grand out of site improvements, vote on it tonight, wait to hear back from Linda, and then swap it for medical if that can go up to 250?
No, I don't think we can do that. The decision we're making tonight, is gonna be the decision that moves forward, and it's a final decision.
Okay.
I mean, I am, I was, a part of the cohort with, John Ireland, who was, a colleague of mine on the Board of Ed, who really, promoted that site improvement line. It is not an important line. I am really comfortable tonight, taking money from that if it saves us from cutting curricular stipends or another position. And one of the things particularly about site improvement line, unlike other lines, as we've heard described, there's a part of that line that waits to be spent until March, April, May anyway. So there are opportunities to see where we are at that point. And really assess. This is not a motion, this is a discussion, but I am really comfortable at this point with the medical at 200, professional development at 70, instructional coach at 122, GHS 1, FT various at 65, and site improvements at 68. Willing to hear other thoughts or support for that approach.
I think that's where. I think that's what I've heard from the majority of the board. So if someone really feels strongly about any other particular item, we should hear it now.
I really hate the idea of the GHS teacher.
Second that.
Yeah, it sounded like
That's
it
a
was
good
on a lot of our B lists. So,
Then we have to come up with an alternate.
Then what's
We
the
have to come up with an
alternative?
well, I offered a para
Yeah.
that isn't filled.
I would be
and,
more in favor of a para that isn't filled.
Yeah.
Yep. That doesn't get us the right number, but
Well,
Does not.
you could do the para at the 25, and then you could see site improvements go up by the delta.
I would do that.
It maintains the choice.
To maintain,
Students.
to keep the GHS teacher.
Okay, so, again, I'm just continuing the conversation. That's 200. So that would be then, the para at 25, 148 leaves, just shy of 40,000, which would be taking 108 out of site improvements. Have I done that math correctly? Just shy of 108.
So,
Sorry, go through the numbers again.
right,
So 200 medical,
Mhm.
70 professional development, 122 instructional coach. 120, 25,148 paraprofessional. And what that leaves then is 68,000
And do you have?
plus
39,852 would make site improvement $107,852.
yeah, so just shy of the 108, but could you repeat that number again, please?
Site improvement would be $107,852.
That brings us to 525 total.
All right,
So.
thoughts on that?
my only thought on it is, I want the universe to know that this is a paraprofessional that is not employed, like, we don't have this position.
No, that's right.
It's on a person.
It's not a person.
And it's not a child.
It's not
losing
even like the next vacancy, there's like 5 vacancies.
And the promise that we heard earlier, that if we need such a paraprofessional later, that person will get hired and we'll figure it out.
That is correct.
They need to change the,
Okay, pause for a second. Okay, thank you.
2 hours before you.
How much did we miss? Was there a lot we missed?
No, we didn't miss any.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm just,
It'll be a good time to check with Arnold.
I was just gonna. Text them.
So we're saying 107K for site improvement.
almost 108. It would be,
107,852.
107,852.
yep,
Leaving the total line at what?
What's, yeah.
And again, Arnold, I would say that I only suggest this very reluctantly. This is at $2 million. This is something we've spent 15 years working to avoid and go in the other direction. But I can only agree with Katie and the public. I would rather do this at this point than see more positions.
I agree.
Are we trying to find out where the difference?
I think,
Yeah.
okay.
I've got it at 534,313.
And then.
Yeah.
19%.
no, it's 5 requested for the 26-27 year is 514, right?
Linda, do you have that, what that leaves site improvement?
It would be $406,712.
Yep,
We're left
we're
with.
left with,
Now,
yep.
remember, the target was to be more like 780,000, right? We are significantly, and I am not suggesting here that I would come back and try to fill that gap next year. This now becomes a multi-year project.
Yep.
To start growing that $406,000 up to about $800,000, because by the time we get there, we will likely be looking at an $80 million budget.
So,
We're also
sorry,
talking about a facility study to hopefully
Yes.
bring this
Yeah.
line down.
Yes,
that's, so Linda, sorry, 107,852 is what I'm getting?
Yes.
That's what you're getting? And Arnold, you asked the question, did you have a follow-up? I didn't want us to move on.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, we're off the record. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh.
Getting too far ahead of myself. Sorry. Mike.
That's okay.
We're on now?
Right.
We're now, okay. We are back on tape. I was conferring with Linda that if we take the site improvement line and the difference between what was the 65,000 for the GHS position and replace that with one paraprofessional, we end up on the site improvement line with 107,852 as that amount. And then Arnold, I was following up with you because you asked the question, but I didn't want to move on if you had a follow-up to that.
Nope.
Okay.
And I just want to follow up on what Kristen was saying. So last year, we started out the budget with 99.5 paras. Then we subtracted 2 and we went down to 97.5. This year, we have 102. And now we're proposing to reduce to 2 down to 100. So last year we would have been 99.5 and now we're going to be 100. So even a little bit more than we started with. So
It's a break even.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
so
to be clear.
Is there any other discussion that anyone wants to have on this right now? No. All right. I am going to ask then someone to make a motion as follows. To meet the $525,000 reduction we were required to make tonight. 200,000 from the medical line, 70,000 from the professional development line, 122,000 one instructional coach, 107,852 from site improvements, and 25,148 for one paraprofessional. Will someone make that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say hi. Please keep your hand up so I know. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got a unanimous vote on that. All right. So we have made a final decision on that. I want to thank the fact that I think almost everyone who started out with us here tonight is still here. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for sitting through a long meeting. Thank you for those of you who spoke. Thank you to others who are not here who have participated in this process. We really, really appreciate the input. Again, town meeting, Tuesday, July 9, June, Tuesday, June 9. Oh my gosh. Referendum, Tuesday, June 16th. Really, 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 really important. That those of you who support this budget, get out to vote, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, talk it up. If this budget, if the referendum does not pass on July 1st, we end, well, I can't speak for the town, but we revert back to our current budget amount and have to start off the 2026-2027 year with a budget amount that exists for the current year, even though we will have increases to raises and increases to salaries for various employees, increases to various other costs. It's not a good situation, and we stay in that position until a referendum passes. And you have all wonderfully sat here through the last 3 hours and seen what it took to get to where we are. It does not get better from here.
And Dr. Belstracy, the budget that we sit at this year, even after the $2 million of reductions that we have made, is still approximately $3 million lower than the budget number that's going to, if we fail at the referendum on the 16th, we have to open school with $3 million more reductions than we have already accommodated for in this very difficult series of conversations. So it is really important that this budget pass on the 16th and that we end this budget process and have a definitive dollar amount to move into next year with.
So again, thank you for your participation. Yes,
Can I just make a comment?
yes.
I just want to reiterate, the thanks to you all for coming out and speaking and everything that you've sent us in terms of the emails. Personally, I thought I was gonna come in here and I was gonna vote slightly differently. I thought things were gonna break differently. I thought other options were gonna get presented. And I'm glad after hearing everything that they weren't. So, and that's all because of everything that you all said. So thank you so much.
Input matters. Is that the take home? Input matters. Arnold, thank you for joining us from where you are. I am going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.